There's a ton of great nerdy TV out this fall, from the new Star Wars live-action Ahsoka show to the epic journey of the Wheel of Time. The Lorehounds have got you covered with full recaps, deep discussions, and answers to listener questions.
Search for the Lorehounds on your favorite podcast app, including YouTube and Spotify, for a fire hose of science fiction and fantasy. Or head to thelorehounds.com to join the conversation via our contact form or our Discord server.
Whatever you're watching, we'll be there as your guides to great TV. Welcome to the Ahsoka podcast, where the Lorehounds, your guides to a galaxy far, far away. I'm John.
And I'm David, and this is our coverage of the Star Wars Disney Plus series, Ahsoka, Season 1, Part 8, The Jedi, The Witch, and the Warlord.
In this podcast, we'll be doing a scene-by-scene breakdown. Since we're not doing a season wrap podcast, we invited our very own Elysia to join us for the whole episode.
Yay!
Hi.
Now, not everyone might have gotten a chance to get feedback into us for this episode. I appreciate everyone who was able to get something to us, but still send us your takes on the next Star Wars Film Fest podcast, which we're going to be covering Revenge of the Sith next month. This month, in fact. We're going to make sure that we have some time for any follow-up emails or open issues, things that come up there. So we're going to have some time for that. So send in your feedback to starwars@thelorehounds.com or head over to our website, and there you can use the contact form or use the voicemail feature. There's links to all of that stuff in the show notes.
You can also chat with us on our Discord server. We've got a special channel just for Ahsoka, as well as a general Star Wars channel. We've got a fun and welcoming community. We're all chatting there, and we look forward to seeing you. Links for feedback and the Discord server are in the show notes.
Yes, and the conversation in the Discord has been humming. It's great. A lot of really good stuff going on in there.
I'm not going to say it's a unified front, but it is certainly an active front.
Yeah, but everybody's having the really cool conversation. Totally.
It's respectful.
It's awesome.
It's cool. It's just, I think some of us have differing opinions.
And we're going to get into that. By the way, if it works for you, consider subscribing to our Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can get early and ad-free access to all of our podcasts, as well as a ton of other exclusive benefits.
If you don't mind ads, you could always find us on all the major podcasting platforms, as well as Spotify and YouTube. We have a dedicated Star Wars feed set up, so if you're only interested in that content, you can subscribe just for that. Or you can subscribe to our main feed, where we publish everything by searching for the Lorehounds in any of those platforms.
Lastly, if you could do us a favor and maybe rate and review us, it really helps our visibility. And the more people that are listening to our podcasts, the more we're able to produce all the different projects that we have going on.
Here's a general purpose spoiler warning. We're talking everything Star Wars that's happened up till now, not just chronologically, but, anything that's been released in the Star Wars universe. We're not going to shy away from spoilers there. David, you and I are not the biggest experts in Star Wars, but I think we have a love of the source material, and we try to learn what we can. As I've watched the Clone Wars and Rebels. You've watched Rebels and some of the Clone Wars, so we're getting there. And now today we have Elysia, who knows way more about Star Wars, so I think that'll be a nice addition.
John, just trust in the Force.
Trust in the Force.
This is the way.
All right.
This is the way. Elysia, great to have you here. Thank you so much all season long for the excellent lore bomb emails or voicemails that you were sending in for us. I think it really added a lot of context for folks and a lot of really cool insights and stuff. So great to have you with us on this episode 8 season wrappy type of podcast.
Yeah, great to geek out about Star Wars in a longer format. And
Yes.
yeah, this is my second favorite character in the whole Star Wars canon. So
Nice. Cool. So the episode seems to have the fandom in a bit of a tizzy. There are those that are good and happy eating a bowl of cereal. There's other folks who are upset. No, upset is the wrong word. I think a lot of people had a lot of expectations for this final episode. And there definitely are some plot holes and some gappages in the lineup of things. But overall, how are you with the episode? How are you with the season?
Overall, I quite like the episode. I have one significant problem that bugs me, but for the rest, for the most part, I liked it. A lot of lore building, a lot of teasing. I did wish that we had gotten some more answers, this episode and the season in general. It's like they dropped a lot of little hints. Um, and I guess I'm okay with it because I know that we have at least the Thrawn movies coming, like the crossover Mandalorian movie and stuff. So
Right.
hopefully a season 2 of Ahsoka.
Right. How did you feel that they handled all the lore details? There was a lot of subtle stuff in this episode that I
Yeah.
think for some folks, they wouldn't have caught what the meanings are, I think it might have worked fine if you didn't know some of that stuff, but on a closer examination, there seems to be a lot threaded in here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they gave some nice throwbacks to specific things from Clone Wars, especially about the Night Sisters, like the chant that they do when Morgan's given this, what
Mhm.
they called the gift of the shadows. But then I have little niggling questions in my mind, like, okay, so we saw Ventress go through that ceremony in the Clone Wars, but she already had the black markings on her face because I just assumed that was a Death Miri thing. So I have lots of little nitpicky questions like that, but I
Okay.
can live with it.
Cool. John, we were chatting on our production server a little bit this morning, and you had some things to say.
I'm the guy who coined the cereal phrase.
You are.
I'm the
You
guy who
are.
coined put on your pajamas, get your bowl of cereal, and just enjoy it as a Saturday morning cartoon. But this series trained me to think it was more than that.
Uh-huh.
And for many episodes, I thought it was more than that. And so for this episode to be what it was, I was very disappointed.
Okay.
I would have put this series at like an 8 out of 10 before this episode. I think
Uh-huh.
it's a 6 or 7 out of 10 after this episode.
Oh, wow.
It brings
Okay.
it down that much for me.
Wow.
Because it undermines the whole series that they've done certain decisions. I was so looking forward to seeing development of a low power force user, of a not very sensitive force user, sort of coming to terms with the fact that they aren't that powerful
Right.
with the force and they have to learn how to fight as themselves. But instead they made her another vanilla force user, just like everybody else.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna do the force push.
Mhm.
Not to mention that they built that up not at all before we got there, and it just felt stupid to me. It felt
Uh-huh.
stupid. I'm gonna be honest. It was too silly. I'm out of cereal. That was way too
You
silly for
ran
me.
out of cereal.
It was goofy. It made no sense. And quite frankly, it makes me trust the writers less because you had Hu Yang, Ahsoka, Ezra, all basically suggesting that she is very weak in the Force.
Mhm.
Yeah.
These are characters that I've been told to trust, the things that come out of their mouth. Hu
Mhm.
Yang, how many thousands of years of Jedi has he counseled where he
Mhm.
can't recognize Force potential in somebody? He can't say like, oh, well, they probably need a little bit more time, just like Johnny from 3,000 years ago. Well, okay, I don't buy that all these people missed her potential. I
Mhm.
just don't buy it. It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense to me, and it makes me not want to trust the writers going forward because I don't know if something that somebody says in episode 1 will be true in episode 8.
Well, yeah, as far as the writers, a good point was brought up on Discord that it was really just Filoni was just like, I'm going to write the whole thing and get different directors. But
That's a good point.
so, yeah, maybe this shows why you need somebody checking you on that on
Right.
these points.
Why you need a
Right.
robust and vigorous writer's room.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because it's easy for a solo writer. I mean, unless you're Mike White, who's a singularity, and that's the exception to the rule. The rest of us, it's easy for us to get lost in the trees. Good writers have editors. Photographers have editors. Musicians have,
Right.
conductors or producers or what have you. There are somebody else listening, watching, and giving you feedback. And if you're just in a bubble, I'm sure even Mike White has some inputs,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I
Right.
know I have a friend who's fond of saying that Tarantino did much better before his editor partner died because there's nobody checking him anymore
right, right.
to,
Hmm.
streamline and get the best. And-
And even Lucas famously, right?
Right.
We
Right.
know. So it's in the it's in the DNA here. Not to talk about the episode or the season specifically, but just to pull back a little bit and talk about this Lucas Arts, I think, has a problem. And these short even though this went to 8, which we understand maybe was split a little bit so that they could stretch it to 8, and it was originally 6. They're trying to pack a lot of story into these 30 to 40 minute, 20 to 40 minute episodes, depending. And I understand some value of that, but then I also don't understand, in this season, there are things that I can totally appreciate about. They were kind of leading us in one direction and they went back the other way. Is that a function of time, of pressure, of the studio sort of breathing down their neck? What's the production schedules? We hear all the time, oh, so and so signed on to this project. Oh no, that project is now canceled. Oh, that's been pushed back.
Hmm.
Oh,
Mhm.
whatever. Lucas Arts has a leadership problem, and it's I until we solve that, just like Ahsoka solved some of her internal problems, I think we're always going to end up with slightly with shows that are slightly off, that just don't end up being as good as we hope them to. I don't know. That's my personal theory right now.
No, I was just going to say that's something that I see happening in a lot of companies. But what were you saying, John?
It's not just that this was a mediocre episode of TV, which I don't think it was a terrible episode, but I think it was a mediocre episode of TV.
Mm-hmm.
It's that time and time again, these shows end on a mediocre note.
Right.
And it's not just Star Wars, it's the MCU too. It's the same thing. These shows are not landing for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't think this ended on a mediocre note, though. Not this episode. I just have the one same major problem that you do, but it didn't ruin it for me like it did for you.
I mean, I could go on my issues. It's not just
I
that
know.
either.
You got a whole podcast yet, John.
I think that to bait us with Shin and Balin, just to have him literally on a cliffhanger at the end of this season.
I do wonder what they changed there after, because Ray Stevenson passed away and they don't know what they're going to do with that character. I mean, I really hope they recast. I would like to see more of that story.
But this is where I'm thinking that we could have gone 9-10 episodes.
I agree.
Yeah.
What's the I don't understand. It's not LucasArts is famous for being way down at the level of the director and the writer and really setting the parameters rather than pulling. The only person who's gotten away from that was Gilroy, and Gilroy has a stature and a status and a relationship with Kathleen Kennedy that I don't think a lot of other directors or writers have. He was able to be himself and not have to compromise, and said, you want me, you want me. If you don't want me, you don't want me. Fine.
Right.
I'm not going to compromise. And for whatever reason in that circumstance, it worked. It just feels like everybody else is just corralled by studio, as opposed to giving. All creatives need boundaries and some constraints, and that helps focus. We understand that. But at the same time, when you go to a certain level, that it compromises artistic vision or the ability for the artist to actually express the vision and the writer, that to me, and we're seeing it consistently. It's not a one-off. We keep seeing the same problem.
But do you think that that Filoni didn't get to realize his full vision?
I think he's getting to work on his vision, but it feels to me, and this is like you were saying, we see this in other IP, is that studio is and corporate is coming down and pushing in the ways that they push and constrain. It's like, we got to meet timelines, we got to be under budgets, we got to, whatever their imperatives are, as opposed to something like an HBO, which is really dedicated to the craft of storytelling.
Used to be, at least, but
yeah, they're getting a little compromised too. But so hopefully Casey Bloys is able to maintain some integrity of their bubble there. But yeah, I don't. He's getting to tell a story, and they get awesome toys and doing all this stuff, but we just see it time and time again where there's interesting stuff going on, but then at some point it just feels clipped or undermined because of length, because of episode numbers, because of what I don't know what, but we keep landing on our face rather than landing on our feet.
I'm not going to let Dave off here, David. I think that Dave Filoni made some decisions here that were, his cowboy hat is responsible for them. I don't think that we can put this firmly on the feet of Kathleen Kennedy.
I'm not saying. I'm saying just in large, the corporate body at large. I don't want to. I don't know specifics.
This is something that I want to discuss on our December second breakfast when we talk about the year. Is have we gotten too attached to the 8-episode season because we went down and down and down from 22, 24 episodes.
Right
now we're all the way down to 8. It's a little bit of flexibility. 6. Foundation had 10. Right. I think that we're getting too attached to fewer episodes. But anyway, I think that it should be more like the Tony Gilroy thing of do what you need to do.
But they obviously spent so much money on each episode this season. So, I understand. I love that they're doing longer seasons again of some things like Daredevil is going to be 18 episodes and or
really?
12. Yeah. But I appreciate that how expensive making this kind of high fantasy television is. And, doing these shorter seasons allows them to make those awesome Purgles and
sure. I guess the question is, are you spending your time your limited time that you have on important things, right?
That's true.
Yeah. I don't think that, I'm going to steal something from the Midnight Boys. I was listening to them this morning. And
the Mid Boys are spicy. Boy.
I wanted a taste of something because I was so hot about this episode. And I listened to the whole thing because it was cathartic. And I want to applaud them for being very blunt about it. But
are you in Charles's camp?
Which I completely agree with, is the fight scenes had no emotional component. There was no Morgan means nothing to me. I don't care if she lives or dies. And that was not an emotional scene to me. Zombie night troopers are not emotional enemies to me. But
they're fun enemies.
But you had Balin there, just this is something that the Midnight Boys were saying, and I completely agree with them. You have interesting villains. You did not use them in the finale. You couldn't even have Shin just be like, "I'll prove myself for the Empire." Great, that's a character moment. I just don't get it. Don't get it.
But
why did we spend so much time on these big fight scenes, these big spectacles, when it was just the same thing repeated? Okay, we're in a hallway. Also, tell me that Ahsoka can't just guard that hallway as one person with 2 lightsabers and a straight line of people, right? I mean, the staircase, she could have just held that on her own. Meanwhile, we have the struggle of Sabine and Ezra trying to do it with her. A lot of the fighting didn't make sense to me, and I did not understand.
I have to say, in the episode's favor, is as much as I've loved Shin and Balin all season, and they've been easily my favorite new characters introduced in a while, I kind of forgot about them for most of the episode until they showed up at the end. So that's a compliment that I was immersed.
Take it in, right? Yeah. So question for you then, John, is granted there are criticisms, everything from small nits to oh boy, that was, we didn't jump the shark there. We jumped the chimera, right? There's some, a lot of
I'm going to call it jumping the gap, which is
jumping the gap.
The new thing with force pushing over the gap
right
into the ship.
The episode had issues for you. It was, and it was unfortunate that it was a season with a question mark, a season wrap up episode, because we don't have any hard news as to what next. So that's a little bit annoying. The season overall, episode 8 plus everything else, are you does it still rate with you well enough in the television canon to be a fond memory, or are you just still a little bit, did somebody
I like parts of it. I
mhm.
think that overall as an arc it didn't work. I think that it didn't glue together. When you are constructing a season, your finale has to be king, right? Your first and last episodes are the most important. And if you don't nail those, you're going to have an issue, especially the finale. A bad pilot, as long as people stick around, as long as it's not bad enough to like scare people off, you'll survive that. But a bad finale, and that's what people remember for the 2 years it takes you these days to make season 2. And
Right.
that's a problem for this show because I see a lot of people love it and I'm glad, and I'm not here to sour your day. I'm just like, for me, I would rate this below pretty much everything except Book of Boba Fett on the Star Wars live
Wow.
action
Okay.
stuff. I would
Wow.
rate Obi-Wan higher than this.
I liked
Wow.
Obi-Wan though, but I
Me
like this
too.
even better.
Me too. I did like Obi-Wan. I thought it had a lot of issues, but it was fun, and I thought that it had a better character arc. It had a better overall story arc than this did, because I did not feel satisfied at the end of this. I did not feel like we got anywhere with the characters, and quite frankly, we've reversed the stakes of Rebels. We sent Thrawn and Ezra back the way we sent them away at the end of Rebels. It feels like another
We did, didn't
Palpatine's
we?
back.
Yeah.
Palpatine's back.
That's a good
Somehow he
point.
returned. Somehow Thrawn returned, and with Ezra, with the exact same people he left with.
But a lot of people liked the symmetry of, them sort of swapping places, Ezra and Sabine and Ahsoka.
I am very happy for them.
No, you're
And
not.
I am not with them. No, really. Look, if you loved this, I hope you have a great time. And David seems to have liked it quite a lot more than me. Elysia, you seem to have liked it quite a bit more than me.
Yeah.
I will be the black sheep on this pod, and I'm fine with that. I'm okay with it.
Sure. And you're coming from a place of, damn it, I want good Star Wars, right? That's the commitment that I hear in your voice. Yeah,
I love this universe, and I just don't want any more goofy shit in it. Just like write the damn show the right way. And look, it's not that I went in with any expectations. I really didn't. I had no idea what was going to happen in this finale, and I loved that. And I went in with only hope, really, a new hope. And I came away just being like, what the hell was that? And that feels bad to me. Like, that feels like my friends doing badly, because I love Star Wars.
When a show breaks an audience into pretty much two camps, I'm in the, I liked the deeper, there's some deeper story level stuff that's going on in terms of forgiveness and wholeness and all of that kind of stuff. I was down for all of that. And the plot action stuff didn't break it for me. But then, like, looking on our Discord, and it seems like people are breaking, one side or the other, sort of in this general vibe of, yeah, we liked it and it was good and there was some really great stuff and, whatever varying degrees. And then the other side, which is, wow, that the plot holes and the did they actually earn the force use by Sabine and all of these kinds of things. And a show, when a show does that, when it polarizes its audience, that it was not a triumph by, we cannot call it a triumph. We can call it a success and we can enjoy it. But a triumph is when everybody, I think, is on one side. Sorry.
But isn't discussion a good thing?
It is a good thing. Absolutely.
I don't know. I was surprised that a lot of people didn't seem to be bothered by the whole force prodigy thing. A lot of people were defending it and explaining why it worked for them. So, yeah, I felt the Discord skewed pretty positive to me.
So it's just what I'm just sort of looking out and seeing when people, it's not like everybody is congregating around, oh yeah, we loved it. And there's vigorous conversation on both sides, why we liked it and why we didn't like it. And when you see that, then that for me indicates, okay, they missed something, something didn't go the way that the writers had hoped maybe. So, and that happens. We see it from time to time on episodes and in seasons where it's like, whew, there's a big split, right?
Yeah, and I was saying to Elysia earlier today, I loved the Foundation season finale that a lot of people didn't. So
Right,
I've been on the
exactly.
other
There you
side of the
go.
fence.
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't want to sour this for anybody. If you liked it, I don't listen to me and like be convinced that it's bad. Just enjoy it.
And I think as we go through the episode breakdown, the scene by scene, we're gonna have conversations about good stuff and interesting stuff. There's storytelling.
Yeah, I like
stuff
parts
Right.
of it.
Yeah.
I thought the Night Sister stuff was cool and things like that. And Thrawn still being a badass. It didn't tie up the season for me, and that's just
Sure.
that feels like a shame to me. But I'm still gonna watch season 2. I'm
Yeah,
still gonna
that's the
watch the
question.
Dave Filoni movie. Like what am I getting? Am I out on Star Wars? Of course I'm not.
Right.
It's just
But John, are you curious to continue these stories? Like, do you want to know what Balin is after, what he was doing?
Yeah, I do. Especially the Balin stuff. I mean, we got the tease of the father, son, and daughter.
Right.
I mean, that's great. I loved the Mortis arc, and that's another divisive arc in Star Wars.
Oh, I love it.
I love the world between worlds and all that. So I'm really into the mystical side of it. I thought that was the best part of the show, hands down, is these dives into mystical parts of Star Wars. And they just didn't give me enough in the end. They needed something more with Balin, right? We needed 5 to 10 more minutes more with that guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I just don't know at all what he's doing.
So
and I needed at least more of a clue than we got.
In my summation of the episode and the season, I can see all the, what people are pointing to as failures or falling down parts of the plot where things didn't connect for people. I get all that. I was attracted to other things that were going on in here, so I just got lucky, I guess, in the sense that my verisimilitude didn't get broken by some of the silly stuff. But my one complaint, my absolute one actual complaint, is that same thing that that you're just saying, that Balin and Shin were just left there when they were some of the most interesting and compelling characters that we have been introduced to in Star Wars in a long time.
Right.
And they just left them, and we have no news. There's no development. Even, like you said, John, even just a few more moments, a hint at what, of him encountering what he was searching for, or just something there. So that's my one complaint.
I'm sorry. I just thought of this is what it is for me. It's Bran in Game of Thrones going, "I have to go now," right in the middle of the night fight. That's what that was for me. Is just now let's nope out. We built up to this all season.
Right.
I have to go now.
Right.
I do wonder what changes might have been made at the end. Yeah. I hope some rumors leak out because I'm curious.
Yeah, were there like reshoots that they needed to do for those scenes and they couldn't? I don't know. That's a good point, Elysia. I didn't consider that, and I'll excuse the absence of Balin and Shin.
Do we have any hard news about what's next? Has anybody heard anything? I mean, I've seen a couple of articles, but no, it's like these AI generated articles that say nothing. no hard news.
I mean, we know Skeleton Crew is on this timeline, but that's I'm presumably going to take place in the other galaxy, in the main galaxy.
Right.
So it's probably going to be a while before we hear from these stranded characters again.
Okay.
I think, could this be how they excuse Ahsoka's absence from the sequel trilogy? Like, could it be that long? And we only get them back in like the Rey Jedi school movie.
And Skeleton Crew's been pushed to 2024. Okay.
Yes.
So
I have something else to complain about. Okay. We need to recast Luke, Leia, and Han. And you already have Han. Just take him. Just
he's great.
Keep him, right. We need to recast them. It is
agreed.
Dumb. It is dumb to have C-3PO come in and go, "Senator Organa sends regards." Like, come on. You're just going to, every time you need to allude to a character, you have to, they're right over there. They just went to the bathroom. You missed them. It's going to be goofy after a while. And you're getting into plot lines. If Thrawn is back, obviously Luke Skywalker would have known who Thrawn was. If Thrawn is back and Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Leia Organa are not involved with dealing with him, that will be a failure of continuity. The original story was about that trio, and we need them there if it's 10 years after. and there's this returning threat that they already faced. I don't see these people sitting out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the C3PO thing was cute and worked once, but if they over rely that, starts to become obvious, that we're
Right. Oh,
dancing
she's on
around.
vacation.
Right.
It's just
She
she's
just
at the
left.
tailor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm just over it. I just want them to do it already. I don't there honestly, when I look at the fandom, I know that there's toxic corners of the Star Wars fandom where people are like anything that wasn't in the original
No,
trilogy I
not
hate.
Star Wars.
But the most the most vocal parts I see are actually in support of recasting.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the hesitation is. I think part of
Well,
it is they
this
see
goes
that
to this
yeah.
goes to I think an entrenched interest, and I'm not just talking about one person, but a whole, cadre of people at Lucasfilm who are afraid. There's, certain thing, power and bureaucracy will tend to try to support itself over time, right? And you
Mhm.
want to hold on to what you have and protect what you have. And I think they're afraid of making these kinds of decisions. And rather than being creative visionaries and actual like Hollywood people who are out to make deals and spark interest and tell stories and light the world on fire, this is how corporations work, which is to um, set up in a kind of a defensive position and hold on to what you have for as long as you can, because the end is coming for you and for your company ultimately, right? Things ultimately shift, and that's at odds. And this is where I think the corporate structure and money that has come into Hollywood versus a different eras of Hollywood, where there were people who were on fire and they were out to make deals and really do stuff and live and promote creativity and live creative lives, as opposed to a corporate executive who just wants to ride their gig until they hit their options and their 401ks and their golden parachutes. And so I think it's antithetical to the creative process to be, you got to have good business practices. I'm not arguing against that, but when corporations are sitting on this way, it doesn't promote creativity.
You recast Luke and put him in a movie, and I'll go see it 5 fucking times in the theater, Kathleen Kennedy. I mean, come on. I'm ready to throw my money at you. And
Yeah.
so is most of the fandom. I think that it's a crappy business decision. How long are you going to
Right,
withhold these
exactly. That's
characters that people love?
yeah.
But I think that the box office, show didn't do well for Solo, but I think that had more to do with the sequel trilogy and the
Yes,
fatigue
that
of
was backlash
suddenly.
from The Last Jedi, which I liked The Last Jedi. I'm a
I
Last
liked it
Jedi
too.
apologist.
No, me too.
Okay, we got to have you on our Star Wars Film Fest for The Last Jedi, Elysia, because I need an
Yeah.
ally.
No, I mean, and I'm not like a Raylo, but I am pro Raylo. So
Yeah,
Right.
I think that okay, we cannot relitigate the sequels right here, but I think that
we have a whole
I
we have a whole sideshow for that.
I do think that making Kylo the villain of the last movie would have been much better, and then exploring his relationship with Rey and the darkness within her. That's an interesting story that they just chose not to tell.
right. Right. Yeah, because that's where it seemed to be going in The Last Jedi. And that was one of the things that made it interesting. Agreed. But I think at the time they were releasing suddenly a movie every year, which was exciting. But then
Yeah, it was
also
exciting.
the fatigue does set in for fandoms where we want to be spoiled, but then we get overwhelmed.
Right.
Right. It's
But
the
then
same thing in Marvel, right? There's a debate
Right.
right now. Is it burnout? I'm burned out, but I wasn't really that burned in at any point, so I think I don't count. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard. You have these franchises, and you have a balance between writers who truly love the characters and want to make the most out of these stories,
and want to say something with those
right?
characters. They want to put them into positions and set up conflicts and create drama, versus a corporation that says, oh, we want to play it safe and appeal to the widest box office possible and to make sure that we quadruple our money or whatever. Those are two
Right.
inherently different
Mhm.
imperatives.
And then you have the executives who say, well, Sabine will have a blaster and a lightsaber, which are 2 toys we can sell people. So,
right.
I
The
loved
toy
that. I
jack.
loved that, though.
Yes, that is.
yeah, no, I do like that too. I think that's also a thing in the Jedi Survivor game is they're like, oh, they're gonna have a Jedi do a blaster now. So yeah, that's a coming thing, which I like a lot. But in general, I think that if I'm going to be a cynic about it, more Jedi, more Force users, more people to sell action figures for is better for their bottom line. They probably think.
Yep.
Sure.
And just leaning on Luke. Everybody's got a Luke toy already, so don't need to sell any more of those.
Time for Lothcat toys.
I'd buy one.
Yeah.
I'd do a Lego set of a Lothcat. That'd be pretty cool.
A Lego set. I would definitely get like a plush. Yeah.
All right. Well,
right.
let's take a break. And then when we come back, we can get into our episode. We've got a scene by scene breakdown and we can get into some of the details. And we're back. Okay, does everybody have a fresh bowl of cereal? Are we ready for our episode breakdown?
My pajamas are in the wash. Yeah, I'm out of cereal.
Did you like the GIF I posted in our chat channel the other day? Somebody pouring cereal and milk into somebody else's open mouth. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, eat it in parts.
You'll eat it and you'll like it.
Yes. Okay, we open with the Chimera resting on the plinth of the Great Mothers, and
good word.
Yes, thank you. And of the night troopers loading the remaining cargo. Thrawn schools Morgan on the mistakes of underestimating heroic Jedi. Morgan receives the gift of the shadows and the blade of Talzin from the Great Mothers. Elysia, when I saw this scene, when we got into the Great Mother stuff, all I was thinking was you, and I was just thinking how much you were loving this scene.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, it was cool to see how they're tying Morgan more into this because she's this odd human out. So then, but it also raised more questions. But it was also
in a good way.
As long as they do get answered, I just want to know that Filoni is thinking about these questions.
Okay.
But the blade of Talzin was great to see. That belonged to Mother Talzin, who is Darth Maul's mother, and the leader of the Night Witches during the Clone Wars. Yeah. So,
and how did they get it? Did they call it all the way to their galaxy?
This is one of these very interesting questions. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. I loved this
Eat
scene.
your cereal.
I thought it was really
No, I thought this was a great scene. So I'll compliment this scene. Here's my positivity. I thought this was very cool. I really liked Thrawn saying, I was victim to a heroic Jedi, a single heroic Jedi. Stop underestimating them. Great villain, because unlike Palpatine, he's not cocky. Unlike Palpatine, he is taking this threat very seriously. And that's very interesting to me because it's something new. Okay, I'm done. David?
I have one nit to pick here. Why didn't they bring the Eye of Sion down earlier? So the moment the last trooper was across the little bridge, they were out of there. But whatever.
I guess the flux capacitor doesn't work like that.
Yeah, they can't bring it into the gravity field,
Exactly. So what is this cargo? When we had last episode, we had like a little digital schematic. I actually paused the screen, counted all the little spots that they were counting up, and I was like, oh, just 108 of them. And then later in this scene, we've got them looking down over the cargo hold, and it is a lot. It is a crap ton of these things. What are they? That's like a big question mark, obviously.
Well, the interesting thing that was revealed this episode is Ezra mentioned that Thrawn woke up the Great Mothers.
Yes.
So it makes me wonder if these are more Night Sisters who are sleeping.
I think Marilyn in her feedback says something about that. I think that might have been some chatter in the Discord about this question.
Yeah, I mean, I thought at first that they were, just corpses that were going to be used for zombie battle, but we got that anyway elsewhere. So
I guess one other disappointment that I had, it's not a complaint as much as a disappointment. We never really got to see Enoch do his thing.
Yeah. Yeah, why did you cast West Chatham if you're going to disguise his voice and face?
And
Yeah,
he just
bit of a
and
waste of a cast. Yep.
yeah, and he just kind of walks in and does his report and then walks away. It's yeah,
I have to hope the story's not over. I have to hope that
sure,
there's a reason why they specifically went for, a known actor.
right. And it was exciting to even just to have a trooper with this armor and this name, right? It was exciting to be introduced to him, but then we didn't
hmm
get anything. So
It's
um
more than Merrick, I guess.
yes, more than Merrick. Um Claudia Black, do you know Elysia? Do you know Claudia Black, or John? Do you know this actress?
No, I don't.
She is the great mother, the primary great
Right.
mother, and she is been a long time. She's a sort of a fan favorite actor. She was in Farscape, Stargate, a bunch of other stuff, and I didn't know who this actor was until I caught something on a news story or some website or something that it was her, and then I couldn't stop seeing her in this role. But I think she just did a great job. The Night Sisters were a really cool addition for this whole season. I really loved everything that they were giving with that, with
Yeah,
the
I thought
Agreed.
magics.
she was unrecognizable.
Totally,
So compliments to the costuming and makeup.
absolutely. Um, the final thing for me on this scene was it really, this whole scene super excited me, especially at the end when we've got the klaxons blaring that very Empire sound, "Womp, womp," and Thrawn is framed by the two TIE fighters dropping down and launching. I was just like, "Ooh, I got super excited." And then, yeah, then we had the rest of the episode.
Yeah,
Look, it was a great
the
start to the episode. Got me
Yeah.
hyped.
yeah. The music and the sound editing has been great in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, so then we get the title card, the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. Obviously, a take on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, which, if for those that don't know, it's a portal fantasy. I didn't realize that
It's
portal fantasy was a
well, it's the start of the Chronicles of Narnia.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's probably the most well-known of that series,
Right.
which
Yep,
were written
definitely.
by C.S. Lewis and published in 1950. I didn't
Notably
realize it.
made Tolkien furious because it had Santa Claus in it.
Oh, really?
Yes, did make him furious.
That's funny. Did anybody have? I couldn't figure out why
Why?
the title had this construction.
I mean, I guess it's like this. They're calling this other galaxy Narnia in a way, or there seems to be a lot of teasing about
Interesting.
the Balin, arc, where that's going, and is he going back to Mortis or
Okay.
something like that, or is this linked to the world between worlds
Hmm.
and this dream world that the Great Mothers have been talking about communicating through?
Okay. All right. So this portal thing, right? The in
Right.
line which of the wardrobe. The famous thing is the wardrobe acts as a portal to
Yeah,
magical
and
land.
like a fantastical other world.
Got it. But this was very not fantastical.
One
This
thing I
world.
want to say about the Mortis stuff is that, and rather the world between worlds stuff is, it would not make sense to me that Lothal was the only place you can access this extra dimension.
Mm,
So I'm totally for this being an alternate way to the world between worlds.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it.
And I'm looking forward to seeing that. That's why I was so disappointed we got none of it. That's so I really wanted it.
Right. Right. Have either of you caught this news that Greta Gerwig is signed up for a couple of films with Netflix to do some Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe stuff? I caught that when I was doing my research today, but I don't really have any specific information.
I'll buy
Yeah.
it when I see it. Everybody's attached to everything, and then it doesn't happen. That's
Yeah,
what I keep seeing.
I mean, she's on a high after Barbie, of course.
For
So,
sure. Yeah.
I would like to see it, even though I'm kind of sick of constant remakes. But this is one of my favorite series growing up. So, I loved the British adaptation when I was a kid, and I like the new movies decently enough. So, but I think Greta Gerwig could really get in touch with the human side of the story.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, we'll keep an eye out for it and we'll see what happens. All right. Ahsoka and the crew escort the Naughty, foreshadowing of some of what's to come with Ahsoka and Sabine. In Huyang's workshop, Ezra constructs a new lightsaber and learns that Huyang knew Ezra's master, Kanan Jarrus. And my mouth is broken. Huyang fills in Ezra about Operation Cinder.
Yeah, this was the best scene in the episode.
Because of
It
the
was.
Kanan Jarrus reference.
Or was
Well,
it David
no, it
Tennant?
was-
It was David
And they
Tennant.
called him
That's
Caleb
why.
Dune too, so we got double
Right.
the ref. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
no, it wasn't just that. It was just this whole. It just felt like a rite of passage for Ezra. Actually getting guided by it was so nice to see a new Jedi get to build his lightsaber with the Master, with Huyang.
Yeah.
And I I love the subtle dig at Sabine when he goes, "You were a good student." It's just
Right.
to Ezra. Nice little dig at Sabine, and
Right.
and it was really great. It was just heartwarming, and it hit all the right notes for me. And as Elysia said, does not make sense that
For
he
the
got
crystal,
a kyber
yeah.
crystal, but
Right.
and that see this is the problem is a lot of the episodes I don't like. I watch them again and I like them better. This one, the more I scrutinize it, the less I like it, because details like that, the kyber crystal, not just that, a fact like, oh, they have to go find a kyber crystal, but that's a huge part of a Jedi's journey of building the lightsaber. Is the crystal calls out to you. You go to a special location, the crystal calls out to you. You pick a crystal that kind of picks you too, and it's part of this magical moment that's mystical and forcey. And just to take that away from this situation and have it just be like, oh, he made a lightsaber, and make it very nonchalant
Mundane.
and mechanical.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sort of
mundane. That's the right
repairing.
word.
Yeah.
I
sort of
really didn't
repairing
like that
something.
in retrospect, but I
Okay.
really liked the scene with the dialogue. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
the scene
fair.
worked as in a vacuum. That scene works. When I think about it more, it didn't work.
Yeah, but I do now picture, something like Loki season 1, where you just see a drawer of infinity stones, and it's to prove that they mean nothing. That was like the vibe I was getting from, does Huyang just have a drawer of crystals?
Right. Spare crystals. Maybe it's
Yeah.
just a functional thing. But of
Maybe.
course, Huyang does have a system, as opposed to Ezra having a method or a process. I thought that was a
good.
little interesting dig. And I loved it when his eyes narrowed and he says, I have a system. David Tennant's been on point all season long.
He's
I
always
don't know.
great.
Yeah, John, you must be pretty happy.
Oh,
with,
I love
his
David Tennant.
performance.
I'll watch him all day. I will watch
Right.
David Tennant media all day. He can do no wrong.
And are we in a collective agreement that Huyang's been a great addition into the canon, into the TV canon?
What a pleasant surprise that he was included in this series, not just like included as a cameo or even like on a higher level, but really one of the main players.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was in Clone Wars too, to be clear. He's not
but
new
if,
to,
No,
but
but
for
Ahsoka.
live
live
action.
action.
Yeah. Okay, I was just
So-
making sure we were on the same page with David, because I know Elysia, you are more familiar with the Clone Wars stuff than I am.
It is. I mean, I love Rebels, but I love Clone Wars even more. But yeah, my two favorite characters are Ventress and Ahsoka. So
Yeah.
There you go.
See, I have varying feelings on the two series. I think Clone Wars has higher highs, but
Right.
Rebels has a more
consistency.
consistent,
Yeah.
a more consistent good. And I think that Rebels really shines in character development, which is my biggest thing I like in shows. And so I think Rebels kind of ekes out over Clone Wars for me sometimes.
I understand.
So let's talk really quick about this quote that we plucked out of for Huyang's from his dialogue. The relationship between a master and apprentice is as challenging as it is meaningful. And then we get some information about what happened with Sabine's family, and some source of the tension between Ahsoka and Sabine. And this question of, if Sabine unlocked her potential, she would become dangerous. So that made me think, wait a minute, did Ahsoka then see a potential in Sabine that even Sabine couldn't see or feel herself, or other people could see or feel? Because if Ahsoka has this fear that, which is her own fear, that some personal tragedy is going to lead Sabine down a darker path, which, right, that mirrors and echoes Anakin's path and what she sort of dealt with. What was she seeing in Sabine, or was aware of, or touches, what this conversation touches on what was really going on? There's actually something, I think, more there than what we've gotten in the story itself. Do you guys see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
No. Crickets.
I see what you're saying. I guess the question, if I'm going to boil it down, is why now? Why is it different
Mhm.
now? And
Be-
I'm baffled
because of
by
the world
that.
between worlds.
No, I mean why is it different after Sabine steals a map and acts like a brat? Why is she suddenly ready for training?
But I think it's because Ahsoka realized, that Ahsoka, this is something Anakin might have done. This is something Ahsoka herself might have done. And Ahsoka was reminded with that experience of the world between worlds, of that, and of the importance of, if Ahsoka really wants to stop Sabine from falling to the dark side, then she needs to be there and supporting her as a master.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get that. I mean, even before the World Between Worlds, between the start of the series and the World Between Worlds, what was it that made her resume Sabine's training?
Hera told her to go look her up.
Mm,
So it was a
mm.
little bit of a mechanical thing rather than
But if you're
a
so
calling
afraid
out
that
thing.
someone is going to go to the dark side that you won't train them, just because your friend gives you a nudge, you're going to do it. This is what I mean, is like the
Well,
character moment didn't tie together. The motivations don't tie together for me.
she went for technical help, and then they sort of fell into their old relationship, which was
Right.
unresolved. And then for me, one of the things that I've liked this entire season is this very, very subtle, and I agree that maybe it's a little too subtle. I don't know how else they could have played it, but of Ahsoka trying to find this wholeness and this healing so that she can get out from under the shadow of her fear of, am I tainted?
Right.
Is Anakin's influence in me? Could I go that way? Could I resist
Sure,
it? Could I
sure.
be pulled into it? And if I train somebody else like a Grogu or a Sabine, will that pass through me to them? And then for her to go from, Ahsoka the Gray to Ahsoka the White, all of this stuff is what I have been enjoying out of this season. The thing that I'm still hung up on is if Ahsoka was afraid to teach Sabine, she's teaching somebody who has potential. But all story long, they've been telling us that Sabine has no potential.
Well, yeah, that's the crux of all of our problem, I think.
Right.
Exactly.
Is how many experts in the Force have to say that somebody doesn't have potential before it's just the showrunners lying to us, right? If they're going to reverse that, if they're going to flip on the Force switch on the last second, that just feels dishonest to me. That feels like I'm gonna use emotionally charged words here because I mean them, because this is an emotional show. It feels like a betrayal of the audience, right? It feels like you're treating my intelligence as inferior. That you're telling me all these people, these experts in this area, this guy who has thousands of years of experience can't tell that this person has potential, but at the very moment that she needs it, she'll succeed
Right.
with the tool she failed with at the beginning.
So
Whoa.
maybe
Yeah.
if we had, go ahead, Elysia. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, the thing that bothers me the most about it is that I was looking forward to Sabine's being sort of like the every person who can find their own path, even though
Right.
they have a limited potential in a certain area. And
Right.
to be like, oh no, just kidding. She just needed to unlock the magic. Then I don't know. I feel like that doesn't help viewers at home with their own struggles where they're trying to, chip away, do that. What is that? 10,000 hours or whatever.
Right. I think maybe, well, I mean, the whole jumping onto the Star Destroyer at the end, like that's yeah, there's the issue there, but like maybe a little bit more subtler movements. Maybe the Death Trooper had her down and she was just reaching out, and the lightsaber only had to move a millimeter into her hand or something
Exactly.
like that.
Yeah. Exactly
Yeah,
what I was thinking.
Or we had a little tremble, something, the coffee cup jiggled a little bit or something.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think the problem is you can say, and I've heard this argument in our Discord server of, oh, well, she showed progress throughout the season. She had the call.
She didn't show any
with-
progress.
Well, I know. They're saying,
one-
all right, here's what the argument is. She was
lightsaber
training for a
fighting.
long time. So obviously something's going to work eventually. First of all, I don't think that's true. If you don't got it, you don't got it. That's what I've been told about Star Wars and the Force forever.
If you don't have the M
until
count, you
now.
don't have the M count.
You don't got it, you don't got it. And look, I don't need an exact M count.
Right.
But I need to know that there are limits to this power. Otherwise, it's a meaningless magic system.
Mhm.
Secondly, when Elysia, you brought up the 10,000 hours things, which, by the way, is bullshit from Malcolm Gladwell, and everyone should undo that from their brain. But anyway, the Malcolm Gladwell is full of shit. We could talk about that on another podcast. But anyway.
You're spicy today, John.
You
I like
can't.
it.
I am spicy. I am. I have some more free time, so I've slept a little bit more, and now my spice level spice level is over 9,000. So you can't do 9,999 hours and suck at the activity, and then hit the 10,000 hour, and oh my god, I'm a master. That's not how that works. It's gradual. Right. It is repetition. It is repeated success, repeated failure. It's learning from your failures.
Yeah, failure.
What the hell did she learn?
Yeah, I would have found it more meaningful if I didn't. I know, John, you weren't as bugged by her having the lightsaber jump into her hand, but I would have found it more meaningful if indeed it had been like more along with the lines of what David said, where it just went a millimeter, and it's like, the payoff.
Right. Okay.
But we're rewriting the show here, so
I know,
we got to deal with the show. We can do that. I mean, it's our podcast. We can have fun rewriting the show. I do want to highlight this statement, though. The relationship between a master and apprentice is as challenging as it is meaningful. I think that's a thesis statement of this series. And that's something that is at the core of what Filoni has been trying to tell us in this story. Outside of all of the other, issues we may have, that this master-apprentice relationship is something that's important, and we're exploring and we're talking about it. So
that was the title of the pilot.
It's true, wasn't it? Master and Apprentice? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good call. All right. Sabine and Ahsoka talk. Sabine tells Ahsoka that she is sorry, but Ahsoka acknowledges her gamble and forgives her. Filoni reminds us through Ahsoka what being a Jedi means, and Ezra joins just as they are attacked by TIE fighters. And what I mean by that, what Filoni is reminding us of what being a Jedi means, is this idea of train the mind, train the body, trust in the Force. Being a Jedi is not about wielding a lightsaber. It's more than just being a lightsaber. It's these other components. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but I just really heard very clearly, like, again, going along with the master and apprentice thing, I think Filoni's trying to communicate to us what his opinion is about what a Jedi is.
Okay. I agree that being a Jedi is not about the lightsaber, and I like that idea, and I like some of the seasonings he's cooking with here. I just think that the meat went bad.
Okay. Well, but can we appreciate the conversation that Filoni is trying to have here about this idea of what a Jedi should be focusing on?
Yeah, that's something I think he's been having for a decade now, throughout his animated series. Elysia, you were going to say something?
No, I think that is, I also take that from the original trilogy, that's why people fall in love with it, because they're literal social justice warriors.
Literally, right. Yeah. And this idea that this idea of training the mind and training the body, and then bringing that together in a wholeness, and that really goes into all the mystical, that brings in mysticism. It brings in sort of a martial arts vibe. It sort of brings in this idea of social justice warrior, not in the modern context, but of sort of being a white hat, character in the fantasy of your own life.
Yeah.
So
And to be clear,
Yeah.
they had Luke learn the ultimate lesson at the end of the original trilogy, which is that attachment isn't the problem, it's the solution. And then
Right.
he forgot
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Totally forgot. Whoopsie daisy.
Right. This I love this line here that Sabine sort of goes through. She says, have you been keeping up with your training? I try. I do. She like turns. She's self-reflective in the moment. And this was another moment that caught me, as well as Ahsoka coming around and committing to Sabine. I think something that was missing in their relationship was that Ahsoka was not 100% her master. She was 1 foot out. And so she wasn't able to give Sabine the support Sabine needed to get into her potential. And it's at that moment when Ahsoka does commit to her, when not only is Sabine honest, she apologizes. She kind of says, "Oh, I try." And then she's like, "No, that's bullshit. I do. I am keeping up with that. Maybe I'm not doing the best I could do it, but I'm doing it."
That was your read, because for me it was the answer to the dentist when they ask if you floss every day.
I do.
That's kind of, yeah. I try. I do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. It felt very like when I used to take piano lessons as a kid and I didn't want to practice. Did you practice this week? I try.
Yeah.
It was very like, yeah, trying to hide behind some soft language over there.
Exactly. And I think the point is that they're both trying to get to a place of authenticity so that they can actually be wholly in their master and apprentice relationship. Because if either of them are out, they're being self-protective, then it's not going to go well, right? And you're not going to get results, and you're not going to get advancement. We also have some conversation here about Anakin as a good master who stood by Sabine in thick and thin.
Ahsoka, yeah.
Sorry, did I? Sorry, yeah, apologize. Ahsoka.
Yeah, is that true? I don't know.
I mean, he stood by her during, when. Yeah, exactly. I think that's what she was thinking of.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
And then he tried to kill her later. So
he
whatever.
did try to kill her later. So that's, again, complicated people. But I think that in her mind, Vader is a different person than Anakin, and that's just gonna be like that forever.
Right.
I think she has to, and I mean, I think that Anakin's Force Ghost wants it to be that way in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So although it's like when he goes red for a minute.
Yeah.
And I think we can all agree that there was some bad CGI in this scene. With the backdrop.
I wasn't bothered by it in the way you guys were.
Okay. I've infected John with my...
I never notice that stuff. I'm always like too invested in the story. I think the problem is, with me, if I start to notice that stuff, you've got a big problem, because that means that the story has lost me.
I don't know.
Right.
But there are other stuff that bother me more. Like, I love the Howlers, but I don't know. The creatures, they're campy, but not... This isn't like the Purgle was really good CGI. A lot of the Star Wars creatures are just kind of, more campy costumey. And that's the stuff that stands out to me more.
Okay. Right. I like the campy costumey Star Wars stuff, because
I
feels
like it.
Like
it's
Star
part
Wars.
Of it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's like, I don't want the holograms to be perfect either. It's all part of the low tech vibe of Star Wars.
Right.
Yeah. All right. As TIE fighters attack, Ahsoka and Ezra use the Force to keep the T6 from falling on the Na'vi, and Sabine jerry rigs the ship and then is able to take out the 2 TIE fighters.
Hold my beer, Hu Yang.
Are TIE fighter pilots just upgraded stormtroopers that they can't hit the freaking side of an Argonath? I can't believe that they just didn't wipe them out completely. It was, and then I poured another bowl of cereal and I carried on with the episode.
Yeah.
I know. Pretty silly, but
you were going to say, Elysia?
It was fine.
No, they should have kept the clone troopers.
Yeah.
I like how the Bad Batch tells that story that, really the downgrade in the accuracy of the troopers is because they, just have regular people doing the job now.
Oh, as opposed to
the clones who are born and bred and raised to be soldiers, perfect in sync soldiers.
Very good.
It's very confusing. Honestly, I still don't fully understand why Palpatine was obsessed with getting rid of the clone troopers. I guess it wasn't really him. It was more what's his name? The old man. Why can't I think of his name right now? The admiral.
Tarkin.
Oh, yeah.
Tarkin, Grand Admiral Tarkin. I could not think of his name for a minute. But yeah, I think it was more him.
Yeah. That's a good question. Write in. Send us an email for our next podcast.
I mean, I guess they were becoming too individuated.
So,
but then why get individuals? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it doesn't really add up. I think Tarkin just wants to control people, and I think the more people he can get, maybe it's if you have a friend or family member drafted into the military, you're less likely to oppose the military, right?
Yeah, good
Maybe
point.
That's part of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Now I'm writing Star Wars.
But you're not completely making that up, because there have been. It is true that they started to take them as kids because of the problems where they weren't being uniform enough, and like the clones,
right?
Yeah. So they did start indoctrinating them as children, which, by the way, so do the Jedi.
That's an interesting. Yes, so do the Jedi. That is absolutely true. So that's an interesting thing. I could see a couple of emails from a couple of our regulars writing in talking about how state organizations and institutions co-opt populations, and I could totally see that as a way to get investment from the general population. Well, my little, Johnny and Mary are off fighting for the Empire, so I've got to be pro-Empire. I can't be seditious.
I mean, I can't scroll through Reddit without getting a military ad. Join the military, become a hero. It's just everywhere. Like, that's
really
part of our culture in America. Yeah.
Well, I think there is a deficit right now in terms of recruitment. Yeah. But anyway, that's another podcast. All right. Enoch reports in that the TIE fighter attack was maybe successful, and then Thrawn orders preparations to repel a ground assault on the off chance that they're still around. Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra mount up on Howlers while Huyang works on repairing the T6. Morgan briefs a squad of Night Trooper volunteers and then confers with Thrawn. So this was a lot of basic plot setup stuff, right, for the back half of the episode.
Yeah. Not a lot to say on this.
No. The whole setup of is the T6 gonna be repaired in time? I don't know, don't wait for me. That was just very transparent, that when Ahsoka does say her line and they go jumping off the thing, it's like, okay, obvious. That was just it's an easy gimme. So
I think the problem is that that's the second time they did that in this season. They did the same thing in the forest on what was it, Peridia, is that the name of it?
No.
Peridia is where they are now.
Yeah, that was.
Sorry. The other
Satos?
one. Satos, yeah. They did it on Satos,
right?
So it's a little cheap to use the same MacGuffin twice.
Yeah. I thought this line was interesting that Thrawn is saying, "Oh, it's not for me; it's for the Empire," and then he says, "The security of our galaxy." What does that mean? The security of our galaxy? Security meaning like, wait, there's an outside threat? Like, you got to get back?
That's from the Thrawn books. Yes, there is a thing. Elysia, you probably know more about this than I do.
You think the Grisk are coming?
Was that what he was afraid of in the Thrawn books? Because I started the Thrawn books and I didn't follow through with them.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, they were the enemies. They were from elsewhere. They were from within the main galaxy, but also like the Chiss, Thrawn's people. They're from the unknown regions. And yeah, we know that it does seem likely that we will be seeing them in live action, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think Thrawn has fears. Wasn't that the original reason that Thrawn joined the Emperor? Was to protect against this. He was like,
right,
hey, we gotta prepare for this big threat, Palpy.
Yeah, right. But there has also been these teases that maybe whatever Balin's looking for has been chasing them away, like the Night Sisters, and that Thrawn was trying to escape from something on this planet.
Yeah. So to me, this is a very operative phrase: security of our galaxy, not this our galaxy. So nice track work being laid right there. So I am for it. Okay, the trio jetpack back to the area of the Night Sister Temple and observe the Eye of Sion docking with the Chimera. Ahsoka checks in with Huyang to set the hook for the T6 being ready in time. They discuss. So I do have my nits here. I'm not being all blurry eyed about this. I do have some. There's some bad tropes in here. They discuss strategy, and Thrawn orders a bombardment as the trio charges the front door, using their combined force powers to try to pry it open. Wow. Okay. So Thrawn found this place. He woke up the witches, rebuilt his starship. That was a good line.
Yeah. Communicated a lot in a few words.
Yeah. And we just don't know anything about why the witches were sleeping.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. I like I said, I think that Elysia has said this a bunch of times too. They've set up a lot of interesting questions for the universe and for the next season. I wish we got some answers this season. I don't think we got any. This felt like half of a season worth of content, I thought.
Agreed. I like the fact that Ahsoka is like, never mind the maneuvers, just go straight at him, which is sort of a distillation of Admiral Nelson, the great British admiral and from the Napoleonic War eras. That's a quote that's been sort of misattributed to him, but this idea of like, yeah, don't mess around with everything, just go straight in and, just go in for the attack. So, but this bombardment was just ridiculous. I mean, nobody in Thrawn's forces can shoot straight. So it's pretty ridiculous.
As they're dodging like very big bomb blasts, I'm like, okay, all right. Again, the episode has already made me a little bit annoyed by this point. I don't completely break until the force push later, but I'm already on edge by this point. I think
death by 1,000 cuts.
What it is, it's not that, I think you're right. Death by 1,000 cuts. It's not that any of these decisions were terrible. It's that most of them were boring. I thought they were boring decisions. Okay, you're not going to kill the characters on the way to the thing, so you just have this pointless action scene. Now you have another pointless action scene because they're not going to die here. I never thought any of the characters were going to die, and I was right. And other than Morgan, which whatever, she's expendable, but.
I think we knew she was going to die, right? I thought so, but
I think when he says when we get to that scene, but I didn't know what was going to happen in this season with her. So
but I would have gladly sacrificed. I thought the action was fun throughout the series, but I would have gladly sacrificed a significant chunk of it to get more answers, like not just teases of lore, but just actually show us more new things.
I think this bombardment was so overpowered that it was like, well, if they can survive this, there's no stakes, right? It's just completely ridiculous that they could thread their way through this. So
I think that's right, and it's not like laser bolts that you can just dodge easily, like a Jedi, or reflect easily,
right?
But these are like massive explosions. You're going to predict where these massive explosions go.
Yeah, one after another with debris flying up in your face, and the Howler's not going to panic and run, and so.
And you're going to tell me that Thrawn has not programmed his ship to just go in online so that you don't miss anything? You have to just shoot random shots. Right. That's what you need to do with these things. You can't just make a line of explosions.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking of the creator, but
yes, right. Yeah, we're gonna have a one shot about that shortly for that movie. No negotiating with the Apprentice of Skywalker. So that was a nice little line.
Yeah, that was a cool line. You know, another nod to Rebels that I forgot to mention earlier, and I want to give props to Filoni for poking fun at himself with, is the emitter for the lightsaber was a nod to Rebels, because people complained that the lightsaber blades were too narrow in Rebels. And so Ezra goes, oh no, that emitter's too narrow.
Oh, very good. That's a great.
So that's fun. That's fun.
Fun little throw in there. So, and then when they're charging and Ahsoka says, Sabine, help. And she sort of sticks her hand out there as well to pseudo help. Like, wait a minute, does she have force powers or not? So they really, it's a really muddled thing with her and the force powers, and whether we were building up and whether it was earned or not, I do totally see the point. It never took me out, but I do totally get it.
I
All
am
right.
shattered to pieces. All right, go on.
Inside the temple, the trio fights off a night trooper assault. Working as a team, they easily dispatch their enemies. Meanwhile, the witches turn on some magics and turn the slain troopers into zombies.
Hold on, wait. Did they change the spelling of magic in the season?
Yeah, it's always been a thing. M-A-J.
No, but wasn't it M-A-G-I-C-K earlier in the season?
Yeah, but I think that when they say the magics like this, they're talking about like people, was my interpretation.
Okay.
Like maybe the Night Sisters are actually the Magics is their original name, something like that. I don't know. That was another thing I want an answer to, but yeah, that jumped
I
out at
think
me too.
I think more likely an intern made a typo. But anyway,
No.
go on with your scene by scene.
But no, because it sounded like they were talking about a person, like being
Okay.
loyal to the Magics.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
So the trio grind their way up the tower stairs as the Eye of Sion completes its docking maneuver. I thought this was a pretty good D&D party here. You got a couple of melee fighters up close, and then you got a ranged attack person in the back shooting. And I love that final little combo where Ezra throws the two guys at Ahsoka, and she just sort of dispatches them quickly. So it was a fun little action scene.
Yeah, and
Sure.
it was a nice. It was nice they aired this to start off October, and it was a nice
Yes.
nod to a beloved, rare foray into Star Wars horror, the Death Troopers Legends novel.
Okay. I like the little green glow in their eyes. I thought that was a cute little touch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, that's the visual language of the Night Sisters, even back to the Clone Wars cartoon. And yeah, I thought it was fun. See, this is the thing. Like, a lot of these things I thought were good, but they were overused. And when I think back to, the original trilogy, which has its issues too, the lightsaber fights aren't very often. You have very few lightsaber fights in those movies because they're special.
right.
And the more you crowd my media with them and take out the character moments, the less Star Wars it feels to me. Star Wars is not lightsabers, it's character moments. It's a fairy tale in space. It is this space opera.
Elysia, I wrote down the witch's chant that was in the subtitles, and it's here in our notes. Do you recognize any of this? Does this come from any other source? Or
well, the entire chant has been it is pulled straight out of we've seen it used before to raise zombies. So,
okay.
But as far as I don't think this is a complete language that we've heard, just sort of a tease.
Okay, got it. I didn't know if it was it pulled from another, a book or comic or a show.
Yeah, no, it's literally a chant that we've seen used in other shows.
Okay,
in the Clone Wars, right?
Yeah,
especially.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but I'm also questioning myself. Did we hear it in like the Jedi game? But I can't remember.
You mean the game show?
With
Ahmed Best?
No. The Fallen Order
Jedi Fallen
game.
Order. I'm sorry. Yeah, gotcha.
Interesting.
There's a Night Sister in there. I gotcha.
Yeah, well, because they raise the zombies in the game, and you have to fight them.
Right.
Got it. The hyperspace ring. That's a pretty cool thing. I was actually just watching Revenge of the Sith, and of course Obi-Wan docks with his hyperspace ring at some point, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's the thing from the thing. So, and it was there the whole time, and I don't think I ever put it together, and that's how this thing was going to work. So it was kind of like a duh moment where I could have smacked my forehead. So, but it was cool to see nonetheless.
Yeah, I thought it was good, and Halloweeny, as Elysia said.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. As the baddies prepare to depart, Thrawn puts Morgan into the fight as his rear guard action. The trio reaches near the top where they encounter Lady Morgan Elspeth. Ahsoka stays to fight as Ezra and Sabine head for the ship where they encounter the zombie death troopers. Thrawn orders the departure and Sabine uses the Force. I am really happy that Diana Lee Inosanto, who plays Lady Morgan was in as much as she was in, and I would have been happy to have her in a lot more Star Wars. I thought she was great, and I really enjoyed the fight scene, the overall fight scene with her and Ahsoka. I
I
don't know.
really want her backstory.
Yeah. Do you think they could resurrect her, Elysia?
I mean, that so far when we've seen them actually resurrect anyone, there's basically two ways. There's the zombie way, which is not pretty, or the ghost way is preferable because then they can still actually communicate and
Right.
be full characters. So yeah, that could happen. I
Okay.
don't see why they couldn't have Force Ghost Morgan.
Right. And well, now there's no more Night Sisters left on, and they destroyed the temple or their fortress or whatever it is. So I don't think her body is physically resurrectable. So
right.
Also, like, what's she gonna do? Go, that's her dialogue line if she's a physical zombie.
And I was bummed that they just leveled her up and then they took her out, and I was
exactly. Yeah.
I was really looking for more, but I loved her introduction in Mando, and I loved the fight that her and Ahsoka had in the garden area there. She was just a really great character to have, and so I'm going to miss her a lot. The Death Troopers, there's actually, I paused the screen and I took a picture. There's like actual like zombie inside the helmet there. That was really cool. So the Death Troopers are actual Death Troopers.
Can we talk about the For Dathomir part?
Yes, we can. For Dathomir, she whispers under her breath.
Yeah, I found that very interesting because it makes me wonder what has Thrawn promised them, because obviously that's what's at play. Obviously, we know that most of the Night Sisters were genocided by Dooku and Grievous back in the day. So are they repopulating the planet? What's the plan? That's exciting to me.
That's interesting. That's a good call, because Morgan does specifically say for Dathomir. So she's willing to give up her life for a greater quote unquote good of what she thinks is good, right?
Well, it was also like, why would you team up with an Imperial if Imperials are the ones who wiped out your people? And like, well, if another Imperial can promise to restore your people, then that becomes more interesting.
And maybe she just heard that argument first, right? I mean, Cal had to convince Marin of that in the Jedi games, in the Jedi Fallen Order games, that the Imperial forces are the same functionally as the Separatists that killed your people. Whereas at first she just thought the Jedi were problems because she saw lightsabers,
Right. True. Good point. Yeah, and we know that they don't like Jedis. It smells like Jedi.
Right. And Thrawn does say, not for me, but for the Empire. So they have an alliance. So they're using each other, the Night Sisters and Thrawn.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. They're both using each other.
Yeah.
And I can see that alliance falling apart
later. I wouldn't see it falling apart on Thrawn's end as much as it was once he gets plugged back into the larger remnants of the Empire, then that would be problematic. But I think for him, but then when he's done, what does Thrawn do when he's done using somebody? That's a question.
Right. I think as long as he has some kind of use for them, he doesn't dispose of them.
Right.
Right.
Or double cross them.
As long as he doesn't see them as a threat.
Right.
Sure. Oh, that's true. That's true. Are the Night Sisters ever going to be a threat? I don't know. Maybe he's promising them some kind of power sharing on Dathomir, have that be the headquarters of the new Empire. I don't know.
Or if there's this external threat that he is recognizing that the Night Sisters are an important part of the defense from that external threat, even though maybe they're by themselves, they're not enough, but in conjunction with other things. They could
and
be
as we learned, conjunction, junction, what's your function? Picking up words and phrases and clauses. All right. Schoolhouse Rock. I'm done with it.
You're speaking my language, man.
We did those when I was a kid too. I know that they've been around a while.
They bridged, yeah.
Ezra
and Sabine win their fights and then jump the shark. I mean, jump to the Chimera.
Jump the gap. That's
jump the gap.
That's what it's called now.
Gap.
Meanwhile, Ahsoka is driven. John, by the way, have you ever actually seen the Jump the Shark
I've seen the YouTube clip of it.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it. All right.
I know what it's from. It's from Happy
Right.
Days when they. Yeah. Yep.
I assume you know what it is. Amelia, what's your name? Elysia. Sorry, it's getting late. Been a long day.
Yeah, no, yeah, same deal. I've
Yeah.
seen the YouTube clip. I did watch Happy Days growing up. You know, it was one of those things on TV, but I cannot recall if I've actually seen that episode in context.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty horrific. Seeing Henley Winkler in a leather jacket and a life vest was pretty ridiculous. Anyway, meanwhile, Ahsoka is driven to the top of the plinth by the night troopers. Sabine chooses to stay with her master. What do we think of this final fight scene here?
I mean, I thought that this is how it was going to turn out, but I have to also keep in mind that I knew certain leaks, so I knew some people were going to be left behind.
Oh, okay. You got spoiled.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there were some plot leaks a few weeks ago, at least.
Oh, okay. All right.
You're more on the X than we are.
did it ruin your enjoyment of the episode?
No, not at all,
Okay.
actually, because yeah, I found it, knowing, I think, that it was going to end on a massive cliffhanger made me just go in and be like, okay, so it's going to end on a cliffhanger, and appreciate how it ended on there. Because I actually quite like the end of the episode.
Cool. I was surprised that Ahsoka loses her short sword. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. The Wakisaji. Oh, I can't do it now. My mouth is broken. Anyway, she lost one of her swords. That was really distressing.
Right. Yeah. The fight itself, it was fine. It went on way too long.
Okay.
It was fine though.
All right.
It was. I liked Sabine coming back to save her. That was good. Because there was that whole, I complained on the Discord before too, like they learned nothing over the course of the season. They're splitting up again. I think that if Ezra, Sabine, and Ahsoka had taken on Morgan right away, they could have ended her in a minute and ran up, and probably everybody could have gotten on the ship. But I don't know. But here, at least we have something learned, which is Sabine stays with her master, right?
Right. And then she comes into her wholeness and all of her skills, right? She uses her armor, she uses her blasters, she uses her lightsaber as a single fighting style, as opposed to one, the other. So her Mandalorian and Jedi are kind of fusing now finally into a wholeness. And I think that's what, if we take Filoni's, one of his theses, which is it's not just about lightsaber, but it's about training your whole self and trusting in the Force. Then we see, Sabine actually coming into, her full power, and I'm not even talking about the actual Force use, but actually like fighting and doing her fighting style. She's whole now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that this fighting style shows both sides, and I'm wondering if we ever do get to see Grogu grow up, what would his fighting style look like?
Interesting,
because he's also has the Jedi and the Mandalorian training.
That's right. I did like the double strike that Ahsoka gets on Morgan to end the fight. She hits her with both the saber and the blade of Talzin across her midsection. So it was a cool fight. I could have watched that fight for days.
Okay, I could not. I did like the end of it. That was really cool. I just thought that in general that fight just took way too long for stakes I didn't like. I knew Ahsoka was going to win,
care about. Right, yeah.
I knew Ahsoka was going to win. I didn't care enough about Morgan.
I mean, I'm more interested in Morgan than you, but I think I knew the whole time exactly how it was going to end. So it's like, okay, come on.
Yeah, let's get to the point.
I could see Morgan, once Thrawn committed her to stay behind, and I was surprised by that. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, she's going to go, but I had no idea where she was going to end up at the end of the season, at the beginning of the season. So, but I've always liked her character a lot. All right, the Chimera departs. Thrawn orders the destruction of the temple, and Sabine and Ahsoka are rescued by Huyang, which no one saw coming. Oh, ha, my gosh. They jump off a cliff, whatever.
Well, they did set that up in the first episode, so I appreciate that.
So they give chase. Thrawn goads Ahsoka, calling her a Ronin, before jumping into hyperspace. I thought that was pretty interesting that he used that word. John, you had some thoughts on this, I think.
Well, I'm going to steal this from the Midnight Boys too, which is, are there samurai movies in this universe? Like, where did they get the word Ronin from?
Well, and they use boken, which is the wooden sword.
Yeah, I
And
guess they pull from other real world stuff too.
I mean, it wasn't the original. One of the big original inspirations was Seven Samurai. So
For sure, but you don't
Hidden
call the Jedi
Fortress.
samurai, right? It's these
yeah, no,
words kind of
it's
feel
like
far into this universe.
it's like when they call the Purgles whales.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. All right, all right, all right. I buy it. You've convinced me. You've convinced me that it's fine.
But this is the first show, I think, where there's intentional use of those words. I mean, we've always had robes and swords and, forms and, all of, train your mind kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But I think this is the first time we've actually had actual Japanese words applied to character,
Right.
types and things like that. So
Right. And somebody pointed out, like, okay, Han said we're sitting ducks at some point. Like, there are just
Right.
out of place statements within Star Wars. It
Right.
just
But
happens.
this is how I interpret it. Like they're not speaking English, they're speaking basic and it's being translated into English. So perhaps
there you
the
go.
nearest concept in basic is, happens to be a Japanese word we've borrowed or something.
There you go.
All right. All right.
Thus spoke the translator.
That's canon now.
Sabine and Ahsoka join the Na'ti. Ahsoka sees a bird similar to Morai, her convor friend. That's the little owl bird thing. Shin joins up with the nomads. Balin stands before Mount Doom. I mean, some mysterious volcano. The Chimera arrives at Dathomir as Thrawn and the Great Mothers look over the cargo. Ezra is reunited with Hera. So a lot just sort of crammed into the end here. Let's start with Sabine. Oh, we didn't even really talk about. Do we even want to talk about jumping the gap even further?
No.
Okay,
We
we're
did it for a
from
half hour. Let's just keep going.
So Sabine and Ahsoka join the Na'ti. Seems like they were kind of foreshadowing that throughout the episode.
Yeah. Yeah. The stranger joins the Harfoots. Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, was that actually a convor, or was that just some sort of other native bird that made us think of Morai? Now, and for those who aren't familiar with this, in Ahsoka, it's not a familiar, but it's a spirit animal that's associated with Ahsoka, and it's this sentient species of birds called convors. And there was one individual named Morai who was her kind of how do we want to describe it? What's Elysia?
Kind of kind of the spirit animal of the daughter, who's now attached to Ahsoka. But it's also interesting that Mirai is another word for the three fates, and the Great Mothers in this series have the names of the three fates.
Okay, interesting. So, do you think that was actually a convor, or was that just a bird that's supposed to make us think that?
I think it was the same bird that's been following Ahsoka since she went to more since the daughter's
the actual Morai.
Her.
That's the name of the bird. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right. I didn't look like it to me. The bird seemed, when it was on the ground, it seemed very slim and almost different, and then it flew away, and it kind of looked like it. So, but you don't put it in there and not have a call.
Yeah, since we have the Holy Trinity on this planet, in structures, I think it's reasonable to
it's safe
to say that it is a convor.
Okay. Shin joins up with the nomads. What other choices does she have? Right. She's going to
she could go to Ahsoka, who literally offered to teach her.
Right.
It's true.
Which, you know what, I'm okay with this choice, have her go off and then maybe be part of her arc next season is starting to trust people. It's like, you just dangle a carrot in front of the squirrel and see if it comes to you. But
it feels like they're going to be warring factions first, though. But
for sure,
yeah. I think
I was hoping she and Sabine would be besties by now.
I think they'll be besties by the end of season 2 if we get one.
Yeah,
their meet cute in episode 1 didn't turn out very well, so
they're still working on it. They're still in their arc.
Okay, Balin stands before ... question mark. Obviously, Elysia, can you break down the statues that we're seeing here for us?
Yeah, so we've got the Mortis gods. It seems to be we've got.
And what are the Mortis gods for?
So so these are like sort of the holy trinity of the Force. We have the the father, the son, and the statue that seemed to be crumbled was a daughter, but that is represented by the Morai and by Ahsoka. So what's interesting though is that we're seeing this Trinity motif come back a lot in this show in particular, and also in other things that tie into it. So we've seen a lot of the we obviously the three great mothers, but also we've seen a lot of the triple statues in the Night Sister temples. We've seen, and also on Peridia, and we also have had, very subtle Easter eggs alluding to the Zepho, which are an important race in the Jedi games. And they also have a trinity of gods. So I'm thinking, like, are these all the same gods that are being represented in each species' own images?
Interesting. Sort of a collective unconscious kind of thing, or collective, not unconscious, but you know what I mean? Like a shared myth underneath everything. Yeah.
And one thing that people, fans of Legends, are hoping for is there's another character who's kind of the mother, but was actually started as a servant of the triple gods and then became the mother, but wasn't immortal like them, and sort of did some forbidden things to get there, and that's Abeloth. But this character has not shown up in canon yet, so people are hoping that she's coming.
John, did you just get strong Argonath vibes when Baylan was standing there?
Sure.
All I could see was
the Mount Rushmore of Force gods. The three men I admire most: the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. Took the last train to the coast the day the music died. So
the day music died.
Somehow we ended up as a music pod. I noticed that when I was looking out at that volcano that he was looking out, that little beacon was sort of pulsating. I don't know if you caught that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was definitely, it seems meant to catch our eye.
Okay.
What do you think that it is, David?
I have no idea. I have zero clue as to what he's looking at. All I got was just the big Lord of the Rings homage-y feelings that
he's actually carrying the ring.
Right.
Yeah. It's flashing.
Yeah, I've got no idea. I don't know enough of the lore of the Mortis lore to be able to even make a guess.
So. I think they call it Lourdes, a lot of him. But no. I have no idea what's going on. I did like that the daughter was crumbled as she was died in the Mortis arc to give Ahsoka her life force. And I think that it would be cool to have the whole Ahsoka having her life force come back and be full circle in some kind of ploy to use the three or have the three together. Maybe Ahsoka takes her place within the three at the end, because we know Anakin was offered the place of the father in the Mortis arc. They said, you were meant to bring balance to the Force. Here you go. Here's the planet of the Force. Maintain balance. And he said no, but Ahsoka now has the life force of the daughter. Will she now take her place as the daughter?
Well, I mean, I thought that Baylan was kind of being positioned as the father in a way, because, my mom pointed out that he looked facially a lot like the statue.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But also, Filoni said that he made a point of giving him an orange lightsaber to show that he was neither light nor dark.
Right. He wasn't
like the father.
Sith.
Yeah, I could buy that. Who's the son then? Is the son going to come back? Because the son was not dying when we last saw him.
What if Shin is the daughter?
I don't think, but what if Shin is the son?
She's trained for something
she could be
greater.
The son. Yeah.
Because she's the dark side.
I could see her as the son.
Okay.
I would have worried about Ezra, but he's gone, so.
But maybe is there a redemption arc for Shin?
Yeah, absolutely could have a redemption arc. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're telling us is going to happen, honestly.
Right.
That's the most likely path.
All right, so the Chimera arrives at Dathomir, and they look out over their cargo, and it's a lot of cargo. So, dun 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 dun. What do we go for from here? What happened to Dathomir? Is Dathomir inhabitable?
No, that's where the genocide was of the Night Sisters.
Right. So they didn't glass the planet like they did to.
No. There was no Mandalorian nonsense going on there. It was just straight up murder. No, nothing fancy.
Got it.
Yep.
And then that's a question I had too. In the final closing credit sequence, I haven't done any analysis of it or watched any of the YouTube videos that I'm sure break it down, but there's a final planet where a whole bunch of lines come into, and I'm wondering if that's Dathomir. I don't know, Elysia, if you're clued into that stuff.
I have to admit that I would need to see a visual.
Okay.
I mean,
It's a-
something about Dathomir is we know it is a center for dark side force.
Right.
And
Right.
why? We don't know why.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they're going to explain that. And that would be a cool thing to have in season 2.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I have to assume, they're basically telling us this is tied to the cargo, the coffin-like cargo
Yep.
that they're carrying.
Yep. All right. Ezra is reunited with Hera. I felt like this scene went on a little too long for me. It felt a little bit like Lord of the Rings when Frodo's waking up and every character gets a,
I
their
love
own
that
little
part.
slow-mo
So
scene.
anyway, I love that in the Lord of the Rings. I didn't love it here, but I didn't mind the reunion scene. I really like that in general, but dumb
He
person
should've pulled off
behavior
his-
alert.
yeah.
Dumb
Pull off
person
your
behavior
helmet.
Yeah, you show
alert.
up in TIE Fighter or in Night Trooper armor, right? Take off your helmet when you're coming down the ramp, right?
Right, just
Yeah, exactly.
10 seconds before, take off the helmet. What is wrong
Right.
with you, Ezra?
But
I'm
it
on the
could- he-
radio. Hey, Hera,
Yeah.
it's me, Ezra.
They could have had that cute moment if he just stepped out and Hera raises her blaster for a moment, and then he's like, "Oh yeah," and like takes it off in like a charming,
right.
boyish Ezra
Mhm,
way, and then they're
right.
like, "Oh,
Right,
yeah."
oh, I forgot. No, it was
Yeah.
like this dramatic, and now I'll lift off my helmet.
Yeah.
After the dog
After
comes
Chopper,
over and
yeah,
Yeah.
as the dog recognizes the master. I mean, I don't want to put it to that terms, but there's a extra sensory. Chopper can figure it out. I
Chopper will
did.
murder you for calling him a dog.
You would. I gotta like edit that out. Save my life.
yeah, when Chopper becomes an AI overlord, we don't want him. Yep.
I did get a little feels though. Mary Elizabeth Winstead nailed the scene, I think, when she saw Ezra when she was looking at Ezra, and so I was heartened. I felt good, and I feel the casting for Ezra was really good too. I'm very happy with all the casting.
Yeah, very
so
much.
far.
One of the best parts of the show was the casting. Absolutely. I think that Hera, if you haven't watched Rebels, dear listener, she really was like Ezra's mother for a really long
Totally.
time.
Yeah.
Totally.
And there's something there of being mother and child reunion. Paul Simon.
Yep.
This is the second time I've referenced him in a podcast
You were
this
musical
month.
today too,
and Paul Simon's gonna sue me now. But anyway,
careful.
But yeah, no, I do think that there's something there, and they sold that for me. And also, her love died, her
Yes.
beloved died, and
Yep. The father
that
of her
was
child.
Ezra's master. So I think she sees a part of her beloved in Ezra.
sure.
Something passed on, this legacy.
For sure.
Is Ezra going to be Jason's master now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I hope so.
Was the whole how much we kind of needed some of the Hera storyline, but I don't know, it just felt like it got third rate.
Yep.
It just was
Yeah.
it was like an appendage attached to the main story.
Hey, but better than Zeb, who we got that glimpse of.
The
He looks awesome.
disrespect. The
Yeah.
disrespect to Zeb.
He's not
I
in
mean, at
this
least
one.
we got a mention.
Yeah, that's right.
They've gotten better at the mentions because it was annoying me that they were not mentioning characters in The Mandalorian.
Right,
Yeah.
not even saying, yeah. So
Well, and then, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna shut up.
open your mouth. We're gonna pour some cereal down your throat. Here. All right. Final scene is as Sabine and Ahsoka make camp with the Na'vi. Sabine feels something, which turns out to be Anakin's Force ghost creeping in the dark. What did you guys think of this final thing, Elysia? Were you moved?
I
to
liked
see
it. Yeah,
Hayden.
I thought it
there?
was it was nice. Kind of a callback in a way to Return of the Jedi to have just Anakin's Force ghost chilling there, but also just a way to tie together and remember. And I like that look on his face.
Yeah,
that sort of worried but proud.
Right.
Yeah.
Bittersweet kind of,
Yes.
boy,
Bittersweet.
there's been a lot of pain, but we're in a good
Yeah.
place now.
Did
John?
you two watch 30 Rock?
Yes.
I've seen it. I've seen many episodes. I can't say that I've seen it front to back.
You know when Liz Lemon, Tina Fey gets a mentee herself,
Oh, I don't
and
think I
Jack
saw that.
Donaghy introduces himself and goes, "I'm your grad mentor."
Oh.
That's this scene for me.
Nice.
Hello, Sabine. I'm your grand mentor.
Very funny. I could totally
Your
see that.
grandmaster.
Yeah.
Is the line that Sabine says, just shadows in the starlight, is that a pull from somewhere else?
So interesting reference. So we're recording today on Wednesday, the day the episode released, and on today, a new High Republic book released called Shadows of Starlight.
Oh,
Mm.
very cool. So you haven't read
They're
it? You haven't finished reading it already?
It just came out today.
Well, that's what I mean. You haven't finished reading it already. You've been
They're
a little busy.
definitely leaning into the High Republic thing. That's the next thing they want to
Yes.
make big. They even
Mhm.
incorporated it into the second Jedi Survivor game, the
Yeah.
Jedi Fallen Order game. That's called Jedi Survivor,
Okay.
and I'm playing through that now. That's my video gaming right now, and because it is canon, and they are definitely going hard on this. They want this to be the next big thing, and
Okay.
I don't know if it's got it, because I started reading one of the High Republic books. I think the first one that came out, and I didn't love it. And Elysia, maybe you can speak more to them.
I mean, I think it's a mixed bag, because they're all written by
Mhm.
different people, but
Right.
I think that it's they're laying like a really thick foundation for this show, The Acolyte, that's going to come out, and that
Yep.
game Eclipse, which by
Yeah.
the way features Grisk, the enemies of the Chiss bronze
Okay.
people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Eclipse. Have you heard about? We're off track now. Have you heard that they've deleted the trailer for the Knights of the Old Republic remake and removed all tweets about it? It's
No,
not
no,
happening anymore. Yeah, Sony deleted everything about it.
why? That seems like such an easy slam dunk.
Well, like a year ago, they fired the studio that was making it and assigned it to a
Right.
different
Well,
studio,
yeah.
but they didn't even say which studio.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
That's
was in development hell, and now it's probably gone.
It's I mean, I think that's not going to happen with Eclipse because they've already put so much into it, and they're leaning so heavily on this period. But I do worry about the games going the way of the movies, where it's just shuffling around until they get dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a danger that we're in right now, I think. So, and as Ahsoka says, it's time to move on. I'm not sure exactly what she meant by moving on. Maybe moving on from Thrawn and just being happy on Peridia. I wasn't really sure, but we should be moving on as well, getting to some feedback. Any final thoughts for the episode breakdown, John?
Just kidding. No, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
But very literary today.
I was enthralled by much of the season, and I hope that season 2 is more like the middle of season 1.
Got it. Elysia?
I really enjoyed the series, and honestly, my only complaint is that it could be even more like the animated series, especially considering Filoni's at the helm.
Interesting.
Get a
Just
writer's
also-
room, Dave.
Yes,
Get a writer's
yes.
room.
Yeah.
We need more writing input. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Very cool. I really enjoyed the season overall, the episode, even though there were just some really glaring plot problems and tropes, and did they earn the Force thing, and the jump was ridiculous. None of that for me overwashed the story of Ahsoka and Sabine, and this, coming around to forgiveness and wholeness and being together and connecting and all of that kind of stuff. So the mystical, spiritual side of the storytelling never was eclipsed by the faltering plot at times. So
Right. I agree.
I'm pretty happy with this season overall. I don't think Andor really just sits over on the side on its own.
Right.
It's but within our handful of the Mandalorian and Book of Boba and Obi-Wan, I think that's it that we got, right? I think it sits pretty high up with the Mando, up in that level. So
Yeah, agreed. I think because Mando we've also had our quibbles with, even though it's generally quite a good show.
Yeah. So
yeah, I don't think that any of the finale episodes of Mando have disappointed me this way. I think that season 3 with finale wasn't super strong, but it wasn't super weak either. This one felt like a really weak finale to me. And
Okay,
I
not to
hope
me, but
that season 2 is better. I'm not out on it. Like, I'm going to watch season 2. I love Star Wars. I love Ahsoka as a character. I love pretty much every character in the show, and I just want to see them use the toys that I like to their advantage.
Right. Well, let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we will run through some feedback. And we are back. All right, let's get to some feedback. And again, if you've got stuff that you want to share or you've got reactions to what we've been talking about, don't hesitate to send it in to starwars@thelorehounds.com. As I said before, we're going to take some time in our next Star Wars Film Fest, which we're covering Revenge of the Sith. We're going to take some time to make sure that if there's anything that is still floating around out there, we can take some time to address those. So definitely send them in. Jump in on the Discord as well. There is a great conversation that's rolling over there. So yeah, dive in. All right, let's get to it. Danny on the Discord, I wanted to pull this specifically because we talked in the last episode about Thrawn. Does he know Darth Vader's true origin? And Danny pointed out that he does, that he went on a mission with Anakin during the Clone Wars and then later went on one with Vader. And being Thrawn, he figured it out immediately. Elysia, do you have more that you can add on that?
no, I mean that's a good quick summary.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's talked about in the Throne books. So.
Very cool. Thanks, Danny. Next up, we have Lore Master and friend of the pod, Brian 8063, who sent in a voicemail. John, can you cue that up for us?
Hey, John and David. Thought I'd take a page from Alicia's book and drop in by voice. I like the finale and the entire season of the show. There's been a lot of comments about Sabine's quick ability to use the Force, and you probably mentioned that already in your play-by-play. She moved from having no ability to move things to grab a lightsaber to helping Ezra onto the ship in quick time. I admit this bothered me, but it does make good drama, which is probably driving all this, of course. One thing came to my mind is that we never get to see the development of a Jedi in training up close. We see this maybe with Ahsoka and Anakin in the Clone Wars, but there are a lot of other storylines and story plots going on in that show. It's not 100%. Maybe there are some other comics and Star Wars books that I don't know about. But what we learn is very fractured. The Temple is a standard example of a young person taking a long time to learn the Force, and they're quite good at it when they become an apprentice. There are a couple books out there between Obi-Wan and Anakin. There's another book, I believe, on Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. But again, that's a moment in time. However, in the Empire and post-Empire, it's hard to gauge. For Luke, he lost Obi-Wan in Episode 4, but he can grab his lightsaber in the cave in Episode 5. We suspect that not a lot of time had passed from 4 to 5, and he was without a master. Also, he gains a lot of skill in only a short time with Yoda. I'd love to see a series or a book series about a Jedi from beginning to end to fully appreciate how the Force works with people. Anyway, with those thoughts in mind, I can move on from Sabine's rapid Force development and enjoy the ride. Thanks again for your great coverage. Brian 8063.
Brian, thank you so much. You are a great person to have in our community. Always really interesting and thoughtful feedback. Thanks for sending that in. John, do you have any thoughts on what Brian had to say?
Yeah, regarding Luke, I actually just looked it up to check myself because I thought it was longer than just a short time. It is about 3 years between episodes 4 and 5. So you have 3 years of Luke knowing he's Force sensitive, having some basic low-level training from Obi-Wan, and being able to practice. I think that's a reasonable amount of time to be able to pull your lightsaber out from the Yeti's cavern.
Fair enough. Elysia?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that most of what we see in terms of Jedi training comes from like the prequel Clone Wars era. So it's really during a time of war. And I think that that's one of the interesting things that the High Republic era adds, because that's, when the Jedi are really at their height. And you see the more quote unquote normal, what it was like for the Jedi before things started to fall apart for them.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I think it's a good point, but it still doesn't excuse going in one episode going from I'm a brick
No.
to, oh, here, let me throw you across a half-mile wide chasm. So,
right. And I want to be clear. I don't need a breakdown of what midichlorian level you need to have force sensitivity. I don't need you to tell me someone who can't touch the force by age 7 can never touch the force. I don't need that kind of specificity on the rules, but there needs to be a limit here. There needs to be some kind of limitation on every magic system, even if it's a soft limitation. Otherwise, it renders everything meaningless. Everything's made up and the points don't matter. And that makes it really hard to feel invested in a show, because I don't watch dramatic TV to be surprised, and I don't watch dramatic TV to be surprised in a way that I couldn't have picked up if I were trying. Like a good twist makes you look back and go, "Oh,
there's all
I
the
see
clues,
how we could have
there's all the
gotten there."
information. Yeah.
Right.
There's nothing here that tells me that Sabine can use the Force to that level.
Right.
In this entire series and in the 4 seasons of Rebels.
Right.
Yeah, I would say a good twist, it feels inevitable even.
Right.
And
right.
and they could have gotten to that point in this series if they had, done it incrementally, but I still think the more interesting decision would have been to just have her show have her really believe there's nothing, and then show the slightest spark with just tipping the cup or whatever.
Right.
Nudging the lightsaber.
Even like, okay, let's compare to Nynaeve in the Wheel of Time, right? Of this very powerful person who has a block between her and the power. But people who are practicing the power tell her, you are powerful, you just have a block. And it makes sense that people around her that we trust, maybe they don't understand why the block's happening, and we don't need to know exactly what's happening, but they can sense that something's happening with her. Nobody's got a clue with Sabine, really, the whole time.
Yeah.
Kanan has no clue. Ezra has no clue. Ahsoka has no clue. Huyang has no clue.
Yeah,
this is what... Go ahead,
Nynaeve lets out bursts of uncontrolled power, and so then we as an audience know, like, oh, it's in there.
Right.
And so this is what threw me earlier when Huyang tells Ezra, oh, the reason that Ahsoka isn't training her is because she was worried that she was going to end up going down a dark path because her family was exterminated. So why would Ahsoka be worried about that if Sabine was a brick with the Force? So
then
she
why
obviously
is
had to
saying
see
you're
potential.
last in the draft, kid.
Exactly. It's inconsistent across the.
He's negging her.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He's negging her.
So that's why I'm in agreement.
He's just serving
with
his master, right? He's just making sure she feels incapable. Yeah.
Right.
Great.
That'll get you to the Force.
Challenging her.
All right. All right. Let's move on. Thanks again, Brian. We always appreciate your feedback. Vanessa.
Young Secret Sith.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
That'd be a fun story. There are always two. Vanessa
playing the
emailed
long
us.
game. All right, go on.
To Star Wars at the Lorehounds.
Just a few centuries or millennia.
She says, I hope this isn't too late. Looking forward to hearing your pod on the episode. Again, sorry for the book. She means this long episode or long email that she wrote. Thought I'd have time to write all my thoughts about Ahsoka and Anakin, but that's for another day. I'll use some time to explain my review of episode 8 and the season. And yeah, Vanessa, definitely, if you want to fire off another email, Revenge of the Sith would be a great podcast for that, because we're going to be talking a lot about Anakin and his turn to the dark side.
Annie, hold me how you did on Naboo.
Oh, God, just don't do that to me. Make me shudder. Vanessa continues. The character development of an adult Ahsoka was so well written as it was in the Clone Wars. The experience of being in the world between worlds put her in a place where she was able to become Sabine's master, as Anakin had been to her. It bears remembering that she was losing to Baylan at the Henge, but she kicked him away and on the ground using that anger and the dark side. She did the same in a classic Anakin move to Shin when she thought that Sabine was dead. At the time, I could not understand why he was saying that she was inherently violent. I guess this is referring to Baylan, and just like her master until her experience with Anakin.
Yeah, I liked all the dialogue between Ahsoka and Baylan in that whole scene. I think that's right. I mean, some of the best parts of this season were this introspective examination of Ahsoka and who she is and what her origin is. And so all that stuff really worked for me. And that's why I was so hot going into the season finale.
Vanessa continues, or unless Elysia, do you have anything to add?
No,
at this point. Okay. Vanessa continues. My favorite quotes from the series are the ones from her fight with Baylan, because that is why Anakin brought her to him. Thrawn clarifying exactly what Baylan was saying to her was brutal. He said that she would become a Ronin, or she just called her a Ronin, I think, which I looked up, and he was a Sith. Was there a Sith named Ronin?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm confused about
Elysia,
this.
You're the Sith expert.
I mean, not that I know of.
So Ronin, I think when he called her
Revan,
Ronin,
maybe that's what we're I don't know.
Yeah, that maybe makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it was harsh and played on the fears that we saw in the first 4 episodes. Yeah. So Thrawn was definitely trying to provoke her into, falling into a dark space that would then probably make her make some bad choices. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Just about the Ronin thing. Yeah. Wasn't that the name of the tie-in novel for that Visions episode that they did, the duel?
Okay.
The duel, right? Yes.
Which was
Oh, interesting. I'd have to think about that. That was in Visions Volume 2. Or was that Volume 1? Okay. Was that the very first episode?
I think so.
Yeah, okay, that was one of my favorites.
And according to Wikipedia, there was a non-canon Sith named the Ronin.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Right, but from the duel, from that Visions.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Because I didn't even watch Vision season 1, but I watched the very beginning of the first. Yeah, it's time, but now I kind of have time, so maybe I'll do it.
Well, at least just watch the first episode of the first season, because that's really
I heard
the
best.
Awesome. My favorite is, I think, the last one, The Ninth Jedi, is my favorite.
That is also a good one. I agree. I concur. Let's see here. Vanessa continues. She was angry, but she did not react because she knows that she is not and never will become Anakin. I agree with this. She's moved beyond. The experience with Anakin helped her accept the anger, the grief, the betrayal of what he became, and still miss him, which will always leave the emptiness, but without the guilt. Elysia, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the areas where this show was most successful was in exploring Ahsoka's complicated feelings about Anakin.
Yeah.
Can we just make the live action Clone Wars? That's obviously what we all want here.
Yes, please.
Can we just do that?
I mean, oh my gosh, young Ahsoka was perfect, please.
I really do think that Rosario Dawson was made to play.
That's too. The Ahsoka casting across the board has all tens. Yeah,
for sure. Continuing, seeing Ahsoka in live action at full fighting strength was fantastic. Agreed. She treated Ezra as a Jedi and not a Padawan, and Sabine as a Palawan. Is that a thing as opposed to being a Padawan? Is this just a typo in her?
I like Palawan. Let's keep it.
Okay. My Palawan, who is officially a Mandalorian Jedi. Well, I mean, the Jedi Order doesn't exist. So a Mandalorian who's been trained in the ways of the Jedi. I mean, if you want to be technical about it, I guess. Continuing, I missed all of the times that she was practicing using the Force, although I'm fine with her lightsaber skills. She pushed Ezra midair onto the ship, which is an enormous amount of power, which again, when did this happen, right? So these are the questions, Vanessa, that we've been asking this whole podcast. All right, continuing. The end was so moving as Anakin was watching Ahsoka as a Force ghost alone, perhaps with sadness and a small smile, because she had come full circle. The amazing music as the camera pulls back and you see him watching her from afar. She gave him that slight nod, which said, I understand the lesson. And as she said to Sabine, it's time to move on. I knew when I saw Morai that he was going to show up in some way. I don't believe that he will ever be fully redeemed for his sins, which I'm referring to Anakin, I believe.
Mhm.
What that means, I don't know, but I like to think that she sees the man who told Ahsoka time and time again that he would never hurt her and always asked, even when they saw each other for the last time, if she was okay. All right, so kind of a recitation on their relationship. John, any thoughts about Anakin and Ahsoka's relationship?
I mean, it's one of the best developed relationships in the whole canon. And
Mhm.
I hope we
Right.
get more of it on live action. Again, I would watch a live action Clone Wars 100%, but we don't need to recreate the Clone Wars cartoon. I think that they could make a really interesting story just following those two characters through the Clone Wars. And I bet you Ewan would
And
come back.
Ventress.
Yeah, get a live action Ventress in there. Get Ewan McGregor. You got a stew going.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Vanessa concludes the scene with Ezra landing and Chopper recognized him was bittersweet. Hera was happy, but did she not see Ahsoka and Sabine? But what is Shin doing? The leader of the bandits now? I don't want him to kill Balin, and I don't want him recast, as Ray Stevenson was so amazing in this character. It seems that there is a nexus of the world between worlds on this planet, as he was standing on the Father's hand. I don't think that has anything to do with Anakin showing up. But there's a lot to explore with Balin. I don't believe that we will see Anakin again, nor will we see a season 2 anytime soon. So who knows what will happen during all that time. Thanks for all the work you do. Thanks, Vanessa, for writing in. And again, if you want to take some time to write some more thoughts, definitely send us in as for our next podcast. Any thoughts, Elysia, on are we going to see Anakin again in season 2? When we do see a season 2, assuming we do see one.
Yeah, I mean, if they continue to use him tastefully and sparingly as they have, I would love to. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm pro recast, by the way. I want Balin's story to continue, and I think
Yeah, I agree. Look, I would love to have Ray Stevenson, but it's not an option, so we got to do it.
Yeah.
We got to
Right.
recast.
Yeah.
Right. And we definitely do not want a digital version of him. We need a
That's
real
the
human
worst option.
being
Don't
playing.
do one of the biggest problems for me with the episode 9 is that they why didn't you just let Leia die when Carrie Fisher did?
Exactly.
Especially since you put her in that, they call it Mary Poppinsing her way out of her
Yes.
space for death. Yeah.
Yeah, that broke me in that scene broke me. It was just like, why didn't you give her a heroic death to mirror
Exactly.
her real death? And that would have been
exactly.
pow. So
And the audience, it's a catharsis for the
exactly.
fans.
Mm-hmm. I think they could honestly have had her still do the force pull inside to show that she was force sensitive, and then have her die while she was, just in recovery. That would have been fine with me. It's just all right. We're not here to relitigate the sequels. We're not doing it.
No,
Stop
but we are
me.
here.
We're always relitigating the
Here,
sequels.
let's reset here.
Ahsoka, a Jedi, maybe not. You'll see why. Ahsoka.
Oh gosh. We have
Stop it from playing.
our Zencaster, the platform we record on, keeps repeating our sounds for some reason, and I guess it just needed more Ahsoka in its life.
But hey, it's a groovy tune, so.
Oh yeah.
All right, Lore Master and regular Star Wars contributor Eric F. writes in, says, hey guys, Anakin in fact did upgrade his armor behind the Emperor's back. After all, Anakin was a very skilled mechanic. So this is in relation to something that I think, John, you were talking about last episode about Anakin's armor being resistant to Force lightning, or
I was saying it was vulnerable, but I guess I was wrong.
Okay.
Or I think originally it was vulnerable. Yeah, read the email. He explained it all.
The email is quite in depth. So I guess we'll just go into it here. He says he was limited in his ability to use Force lightning due to his cybernetic limbs. The only limb that felt even close to natural to him was his right arm. That arm was given to him by the Jedi, not Sidious. Sidious being Palpatine. Sidious also did not construct his other limbs to function very well on purpose to limit Vader. The limbs that were provided by Sidious felt clunky, bulky, and were slow to respond to Anakin. This is partially because, unlike his right arm, his remaining limbs were not made from Durasteel, but rather recycled parts from General Grievous. Oh, that's interesting. This material was obsolete pre-Clone Wars technology. This non-ability to completely control his limbs has caused him to rebuild his lightsaber at least once, as the arm would exude too much pressure and crush his lightsaber hilt. Seeing this, Vader adjusted the strength output of his limbs so he could have better control over them. These were minor improvements compared to the other upgrades that he made to the suit. Again, unbeknownst to Sidious, he upgraded the respiratory system, and that allowed him to function in extreme environments, even in the vacuum of space. This is accomplished not only by filtration, but internal pressurized upgrades. This made him virtually immune to airborne biological weapons and toxins. Anyway, back to your theory. In the previous podcast, yes, Sidious did make the suit vulnerable to force lightning on purpose. He did this so if Vader ever turned on him, Sidious could end him with his weapon of choice. Sidious notoriously despised lightsabers. Vader knew of this vulnerability, and Sidious made no effort to hide it. In fact, he exploited it whenever he pleased. Vader attempted to compensate for this weakness by installing a form of insulation in the suit. While it didn't provide immunity, it did provide heavy resistance. As evidence, Vader was struck by a powerful dose of lightning by Starkiller on Kamino. While it damaged his cybernetics to the point where he could no longer fight, he survived. This upgrade is likely what enabled him to save Luke on the second Death Star by hurling Sidious to his apparent death. While he held Sidious, he was bombarded by Sidious's lightning, which was meant to be lethal. He doesn't source all of this materials, but does this Elysia sound? Not that we're just Eric. We totally agree your accuracy, but where are we pulling all? Is this like a combination of books and other materials, or is this a single source?
I think it's a combination of things. Some of these details are new to me, but I can't claim to have read absolutely everything. It is my goal to eventually, but there's a lot.
Laudable goal.
Yeah.
So
I will say Starkiller is definitely a non-canon thing. So there's definitely a mix of canon and non-canon.
I think.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think that this is all in line with Vader. This is all in line with Vader and Sidious's motivations. I think that's all cool stuff. I hope it's all true.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I will need to go do my citations on this.
Footnotes, please. Eric wraps up. I hope this didn't go too far down the rabbit hole, but you hit on a subject within Star Wars that has always fascinated me. Darth Vader. Since I first saw Vader on the big screen in 1977, he's captivated my imagination and sparked my interest. More so than the Roman Empire, apparently, John.
Wow.
You have another person who thinks about Vader as much as you do. As always, thanks so much for the wonderful work you guys do, not only in Star Wars, but all your podcasts. As stated previously, they are a much needed distraction. Keep up the excellent work, fellows. Lore Master, Eric F. Eric, thank you so much. You've been great with all your feedback this season of the show, and we really appreciate not only your patronage.
Yeah, Eric's been doing work writing in.
Yeah, for sure. Much appreciated. Marilyn R. Pakila, our favorite Tolkien scholar and all around fan of all things science fiction and most things science fiction and fantasy. She says, so this is a couple of bits from episode 7 feedback, and then she's got some episode 8 feedback all kind of combined into one. Regarding the conversation about Aleister Crowley and magic, I believe it was last episode. I don't know why are we talking about Aleister Crowley in Star Wars? But anyway, that's what we do on the Lorehounds. She says, you are right that Aleister Crowley was not the one who developed the contemporary practice of witchcraft or Wicca.
Right.
That was Gerald Gardner. He based it on ceremonial magic with a massive sprinkling of British folklore, but there's no direct connection leading back to ancient times or pre-Christian practices. That was sort of a homegrown myth that is satisfying but not documented. I tend to believe Marilyn when she calls these kinds of things out.
No, it's true.
Okay, very good. We have two validations. Lovely to hear that The Last Legion was referred to from one of the folks who wrote in. If you want a fictional account of that, read The Eagle of the Ninth by Rosemary Sutcliffe. She's my favorite historical fiction author for that time period. And she also stretches way back to before the Celtic invasions of what we now call the British Isles, and carries up all the way through 1066. Great writer, great material. She wrote probably what is my favorite version of the Arthurian legends, using meticulous history with just a dash of magic, and not spelled with the JK, but with the GIC. She continues, I found myself wondering what is the meaning of the title Dreams and Madness. I did find out that there was a documentary film about Studio Ghibli. What are we calling it?
I say Ghibli. All right. You know what? I'm going to say Ghibli. I know in Japan they say
Japan,
Ghibli.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to pronounce it the way they do.
It's not a Japanese word.
If you go to the studio that has that name, they say Ghibli. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, they're wrong. I hope that they know that they're pronouncing their name wrong.
Some people call it a GIF. Called The Kingdom of Dreams and Madness. So perhaps they're referring to
GIF.
that. I'd love to hear your speculations or anyone else's. Do we know about the last episode's title, Dreams and Madness? Anyone? Bueller?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. There's been some vaguely like Shakespearean references and yeah, they've been referencing all over, like lots of literary references this season.
Yeah, Filoni's definitely pulling in all of his favorite in little bits and pieces and sprinkling it through for sure.
You know, little known fact, he actually keeps pocket-sized books within his cowboy hat. And that's how
he's like loyal, but instead of coat pockets, he has a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
From Wheel of Time.
Marilyn continues, I actually felt rather sorry for Shin Hati, and I think Ahsoka did too. Talk about abandonment. Of course, Shin seems pretty disturbed and laser focused on power over destruction, on power and destruction. So she's probably not a very stable partner. Take your place in the coming empire. Does that mean that Baylan does not want a place in the coming empire? Impatience for victory will guarantee defeat. Well, that sounds like a wise bit of advice for what we've seen of this woman. I hope her thread has a satisfactory conclusion. I think it's pretty conclusive that Baylan doesn't want a coming empire. He wants to break the wheel, right?
I want to break the wheel. Yeah, Daenerys is here.
Yep. Continuing, I wonder if all those coffins were Night Sister bodies. There you go. There's another person in line with that theory, and that the mothers were setting up to return to Dathomir to reanimate all the people who were slaughtered when they were taken over. If I'm remembering history correctly, I believe you are remembering history correctly. Is that that's the case? And Elysia, I think are you online with this theory?
Well, I mean, I don't know about reanimate because I don't know. I think they want living, Night Sisters, not the zombies, because they do have a lot of bodies there that you have to fight them in Jedi Fallen Order. But
they're not sentient, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I don't think you can reanimate. I don't think you could like put somebody's consciousness back into their body as a Night Sister. I think basically you can reanimate like Night of the Living Dead kind of stuff.
Yet, yeah. But yeah, but
oh my God. If they do that, I swear to God, I swear to the Force, I swear to the Father, the Son, and the Daughter, I'm out.
But yeah, I think it's interesting for me, the line that was really interesting this episode was he woke up the Great Mothers.
Yep. He found the place and he woke them up. So
yeah.
All right, I'm going to jump down to her episode 8 comments. She says, found it interesting that the mothers did the whole Gift of Shadows ritual, which meant very little to me, but perhaps you can put it in context, with Thrawn standing right there looking on and with no preparation or special castings. Rather, a different approach to doing ritual from contemporary Wiccan practices. Elysia?
It did also stand out to me that they let Thrawn just stand there and watch. It almost felt violating in a way that he was there with this like sacred ceremony. But I was like, okay, maybe that's just to show that I mean, it makes sense from Thrawn's perspective because he is so interested in other cultures and in learning about the ins and outs
Yeah.
of other cultures. And I guess, you know, they're like, they're just used to the blue guy hanging around by now. They're like, okay, we're not going to piss him off by sending him away. Doesn't matter.
They're a pretty tight relationship right now. I mean, he is giving him a lift, and they're making sure that he's protected. So, or well informed at least. So.
I don't think that the Witches of Dathomir practice Wicca, which first rule of Wicca is do no harm. I'm not sure that they're practicing our real world Wicca over here.
Good point.
Yeah.
Different value set. Continuing, very interested to see Baylan gazing at the massive father statue with the son statue nearby, but no sight of the daughter. Is he going to be restoring the balance of the Force or something? Is that the role that he has chosen for Shin and which she rejected without even knowing what it was? So I think we kind of talked about this a little bit. There's definitely some fun theory crafting that we can have there. Who's going to be doing what? And I think it's pretty obvious that the daughter is missing, and so there's the things are out of balance, right? Is that the indication?
Do you think that's why he was? Well, no, he did try to kill Ahsoka. He absolutely did. He pushed her off a cliff, so he must not know that she has the daughter in her. Otherwise, I think he would not want her dead.
But that's when she was the Gray, and still.
But she still had the daughter in her. She's had the daughter in her since the Mortis arc of Clone Wars.
True. Even though she was very Anakin in that moment, she was living in her inside of her fear. So
yeah.
All right.
What if?
Go no.
What if Anakin is a stand-in for the son? But does it work if the son has been redeemed?
Well, he was offered the role of the father previously,
right?
I don't know. It's all wibbly wobbly. Just give me some people. It's fine.
Yeah. All right. Someone pointed out that the owl-like bird, Morai, is a representation of the daughter. So maybe this is the path that they'll take to restoring the daughter and bringing balance to the Force. Because Ahsoka is tied so closely to Morai, it may well be that she's going to play a central role in this. It seems as though a review of the Mortis arc in Clone Wars would be rewarding for those of us who know very little about it. Yes, it would be. There's a lot
for the
going
record.
on here.
Ahsoka was dead. Like, she was not breathing. She was dead. And the daughter was like, I got this. And she gave up her life to save Ahsoka. She put her life force inside Ahsoka. So the life force of the daughter is currently inside Ahsoka.
Interesting.
On her Wikipedia article, it actually says died on this date, back on, still alive now on her second lifetime.
Interesting. Okay. Well, there's definitely lots of interesting stuff that they can do with the lore here in the story. All right. Marilyn concludes definitely a good ending episode for the season, but only if there's a season 2 to follow it. And I really don't want to have to wait for movies to come out and all that sort of thing. But I suppose that'll depend upon about what happens with the Actors Guild. Someone somewhere commented that this was the most fantasy-like that Star Wars has ever been. I would tend to agree with that, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't know that I'd call it fantasy. I'd be more like mythic or spiritual. I think this is the most spiritual Star Wars that I've seen.
But it's got magic. It's got straight up magic.
Sure, yeah.
It's got Night Sisters, it's got Force, it's got World Between Worlds. I mean, it's certainly more magical than sci-fi
or Andor
on the balance of things for sure.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, Elysia. I don't also want to end up having to wait for movies that are question marks as well.
Right.
I really do hope we get some more seasons of television. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, I hope they just go ahead and announce us. Just tell us what's coming next.
Tomorrow,
Kathleen Kennedy's going to tweet, just cancel Dave Filoni's movie, LOL.
I mean, I understand there's some carefulness around concluding the negotiations for the Actors Guild, but at this point, if they're not concluding those negotiations, then it's just ridiculous, right? Then there's something really broken. So, all right, Marilyn, thank you so much for all of your emails this season. And Marilyn was on the Discords earlier chatting away with stuff. So it is a good old time with the Lorehounds here. Lastly, our good friend and lore master Peter OH, who's not written in for a while. So kind of good to get an email from him. He says, I just watched the season finale last night. Overall, really enjoyed the season. I have not watched Rebels except for the very last episode, but honestly, I preferred listening to you guys summarize everything beforehand anyways. Well, that's nice. Thanks, Peter. Even still, I don't think that there was an issue with enjoying the show without being familiar with Rebels. To be blunt, Disney would never make a show that does not appeal to the maximum amount of people possible. Is that a little bit of a jaded positive? Is that kind of a, it's a nice way of saying that Disney's kind of craven? So,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think they've taken some risks, but I hope that they lean into that even more. I wish that Andor had done better financially to prove a point.
It would have been nice. I think and I remember at the beginning, a lot of people were wary of getting into Andor. They were like, is this okay? Is this going to be any different than what we've seen before? So that definitely made Andor a slow burn. Peter continues, I like the theme of Master and Apprentice that permeated the whole season. The concept of the Jedi Order churning out child soldiers was not something that had occurred to me before, and I found it fascinating. Anakin was a victim of this. He in turn played a part in doing the same thing to Ahsoka. I was happy to see Ghost Anakin and Ahsoka confront these issues and experience some personal growth in that regard. Not so sure what's in store for Shin. To me, she has the look of a traumatized person. It would be interesting to know her backstory. I never get the sense that Baylan Skoll truly cared about her well-being. John, you've been pretty consistent about relating to Shin as somebody who's probably come from a rough, living rough for a while.
I see all the Reddit comments going, I can fix her. But yeah, I think she's probably very much someone who was, picked up off a bad situation by Baylan saying, all right, come with me. I'll show you how to take care of yourself.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't seem he cut her loose real easy, real quick. He didn't even really try that.
Well, or set her free to do what she wanted to do.
Good point.
But you see this pattern in the real world too, right? Which is somebody lacks something in childhood and needs to hoard it in adulthood. You lack power in childhood. You have nothing in childhood. You need to hoard power in adulthood. And that's what she's trying to do now. She's grown up and she's trying to make sure that she will never end up vulnerable again.
Right. Yeah, that's what it feels like. That's what they've given us.
So she can't say, Ahsoka, help me, because that's being vulnerable.
Right. She needs to go through some things before she can get there. So
right. She needs to go through the Anakin Skywalker School for Hard Knocks.
There you go. Peter continues, it's a shame that Ray Stevenson passed. His character had an interesting arc. The final scene of him standing on the cliff looking cool didn't really explain anything. No, it certainly did not. But it was a very nice visual tribute to the actor. This is an interesting take. I think Baylan Skoll was created specifically to cater to the middle-aged dad demographic, LOL. Well, it worked on me. I hope the character doesn't start showing up in memes posted by boring older dudes letting you know how loyal but dangerous they are. The ones they feature a popular character like Tommy Shelby, the Joker, Don Draper, or Tony Soprano. It's usually someone you're not really supposed to idolize. LOL. But I digress.
Homelander. I love going on the boys subreddit and you see people who take Homelander seriously and want to admire him, and you're like, you missed the point of the show.
Missed the point. Yeah, rewatch that.
Has anybody started Gen V yet?
I have not. I mean
not
to,
yet.
but
yeah.
I heard some criticism that it's just studio driven. There's concerns that it's just a studio driven storyline, but then other people have been chatting that it's actually not so bad. So,
yeah,
given that it's the boys.
Yeah.
So.
But you hear mixed things about everything, right? And I heard mixed things about Ahsoka all season, and I was having a great time. And so yeah, I don't know. Same thing with Loki is having mixed reviews going in. I've seen things on both sides.
Really?
And I don't know. Yeah, I saw Alan Sepinwall was just like, this sucks.
Yeah, but that's Alan Sepinwall.
Yeah,
I
he's
know.
always so negative.
He's cranky. You can't take him at face value.
Yeah, but I think Elysia, you've been hearing good, and I fingers
Yeah.
crossed because we're doing full coverage, you, me, and Jean. So stick around for
Yeah,
that
no,
podcast.
I'm excited for it, and what I've seen so far of like the previews, just the way that they're cut together, it seems like they are still leaning into like, let's make this quirky and pay attention to the details. And
That season 1 recap remix that you posted the other day, that was wild. That was an amazing piece of editing. That was very cool.
yeah, if they keep that energy, I am happy.
Right.
May all your dreams come true this season. That's my wish to you.
I'm so sorry that you ducked back in for Secret Invasion.
I know. I picked
Of
the
all
wrong
things.
thing. I picked the wrong thing. I was like, you know what? We're doing it on the network. I'm going to give it a shot. And it was just the wrong thing to come back for.
All right. Peter wraps up. Random thought. Do all Force Ghosts reside in the same realm, or are there heaven and hell versions of the world between worlds? While I was happy to see Anakin reject the dark side at the end of episode 6, there's the matter of him murdering loads of children. He can be very sorry all he wants, but he should suffer some consequences. My take is definitely a Western outlook on morality. I know Star Wars borrows a lot from Eastern traditions, which may differ. Interested to hear your thoughts. John?
Yeah, and there's things in between too, right? Like there's beliefs within Judaism of, you stay in hell as long as it takes you to repent for your sins, then you move on to the world to come. There's in betweens of that. You don't need to like only have one, the eternal damnation or reincarnation. But I think I don't know. I think this Star Wars is so weird about eschatology. It is so like, I guess there's a cosmic force and a living force. Most people go into or I guess everybody goes into the cosmic force, but there's a way to retain your individuality within the cosmic force, and that's what people like Qui-Gon and Yoda and Obi-Wan and Anakin have done. I don't think there can be separate things because the force is supposed to be one thing, right? So I don't think there can be separate places. I think they are just floating within the cosmic force, and then they decide to manifest one day, and that's where they are.
Right. Continues. I was surprised that Sabine's actions earlier in the season didn't have major consequences for her, although I suppose that could be revisited in future. It's a bit unrealistic that Ezra doesn't appear to be aware of how things transpired, but I'm willing to overlook that. Was this did you have a pretty relaxed approach to this as well, Elysia? This, there's some things here, but we're just kind of bypassing them in the storyline.
I mean, I think this goes back to what I say. I keep waiting for. I want more answers. I want to show that there's thought and that it all ties together. And maybe that's not a reasonable expectation for me to have, but I do find myself craving it.
Right. Fair enough. Peter finishes up. As always, appreciate the content and all of the contributors. Thanks for the stickers. You got one of our 1-year special anniversary stickers, and I look forward to yet another year of superb discords. Regards, Peter. Peter, good to hear from you. Thank you for writing in. It's been a while since we've heard from him. So
good to hear from you as always, Peter. And boy, it's been a long night. We gotta wrap this podcast up.
We do.
Elysia, by the way, what time is it where you are?
Yeah, it's 4:20. Woohoo!
Oh my goodness! Thanks for hanging.
You got some spice over there? Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
Did your mom bring you a sticker?
I'm gonna make like a hobbit. And yes, I did just get my stickers too.
Yay.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah,
that's awesome. Okay, so we're gonna just do an abbreviated outro here, really quick. Check out Properly Howard Movie Review for Anthony and Steve, who do movie reviews, and they're doing a bunch of remake movies. They just did a great podcast on Cape Fear. Really interesting conversation about Scorsese and what's his name, De Niro, and a whole bunch of other things. So even if you haven't seen the movie, it's a well worth the conversation about a lot of modern concepts, and it was good. Elysia, what is going on with Wool Shift Dust?
Yeah, well, first I have to share some sad news, actually.
Oh, no.
That my co-host for the book club has long shared their ongoing battles, medical, and that's come to an end.
I'm sorry.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
So the book club will be continuing. Just going to take a beat and figure out. But we are going to be continuing with Silo, and also in Hugh Howey Land, Beacon 23 is going to be starting up in November. So Luke and I are going to be covering that. And I do plan to cover the book in the book club as well. So there'll be no more news on that coming up. And also there will be, the Dune coverage is going to be sprinkled throughout.
Okay, so what's Beacon 23? That's a TV series?
That's a new TV series that's now going to be on MGM Plus, and it's also
what
based
on where? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make fun of the show. I'm just trying to,
I actually happen to already be a subscriber to MGM Plus because they have a lot of like the period dramas. But it's based on the Howey book.
Okay, cool.
So. Yeah,
that's great. That's exciting. Okay, cool. We'll look forward to that. And you've got some other things.
And also in October, of course, there'll be some coverage of the Fall of the House of Usher.
Yes, and you got to talk with Anthony a little bit about that as well, right? You got to cross the pods. So
and when this comes out, there should also be a little blurb from in the Electric Boogaloo episode about Wheel of Time, talking with Anthony.
Very cool. Very cool. And you've got more plans on the horizon for the next year.
Right.
So we're all eagerly waiting for your news. So let us know when you're ready. But I know things got to cook before you bring them out, right? You don't want to bring out uncooked food.
We'll shift stands. We got
That's right. Big time. John, would you please kindly run down our thank yous for our lore masters?
I would love to. That's Samartian, Cyrus, Mark H, Michael G, Michelle E, David W, Brian P, Nick W, SC, Peter OH, Bettina W, Adam S, Nancy M, Lavinia T, Duve71, Brian 8063, Frederick H, Sarah L, Gareth C, Eric F, Matthew M, Sarah M, DJ Miwa, Andra B, Kwang Yu, Laura G, Deadeye Jedi, Bob, Nathan T, Alex V, Aaron T, Sub-Zero, and Adrian. Woo!
Yes. Thank you all so very much for your support, your patronage, and your good listens. I think we're going to cut loose now and just keep it simple. Thank you, Elysia, for staying up and spending this time with us. Thank you for the lore bomb emails. They were so awesome all season. And it's just been great having you as part of our community and your insights to all this good stuff. So much appreciation.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. Now, hopefully you can get some rest.
The Lorehounds podcast is produced and published by The Lorehounds. You can send questions and feedback and voicemails at thelorehounds.com/contact. Get early and ad-free access to all Lorehounds podcasts at patreon.com/thelorehounds. And connect with us on Twitter at The Lorehounds. Any opinions stated are ours personally and do not reflect the opinion of or belong to any employers or other entities. Thanks for listening. There's a ton of great nerdy TV out this fall, from the new Star Wars live-action Ahsoka show to the epic journey of the Wheel of Time. The Lorehounds have got you covered with full recaps, deep discussions, and answers to listener questions.
Search for the Lorehounds on your favorite podcast app, including YouTube and Spotify, for a fire hose of science fiction and fantasy. Or head to thelorehounds.com to join the conversation via our contact form or our Discord server.
Whatever you're watching, we'll be there as your guides to great TV.